What's up, everybody, and welcome to Gaming History 101, the Retro Video Games Podcast. I am one of your hosts. My name is Fred Rojas, and joining me yet again is the wonderful and talented H.A.M. How are you doing tonight, man?
I'm alright, Fred. Thanks for having me on again.
Yeah, definitely. I had to have you on because I finished up the show last week, realized because John was trying to usher us off, and in his defense, we were really digging into his time. And I was like, oh, I forgot to mention what the show's going to be about. And then I said, you know what, screw it. Why don't we do it about Taito arcade games? And you were like, Taito games? That was about all she wrote on that one. We knew it was a go after that. So yeah, that's what tonight's topic is. But we're going to be talking about a couple of things first. But real quick, so how's your week been, man?
Yeah, my week's been good, man. I actually got a year older this week. So.
Oh, yes, that's right. Happy birthday. I'm sorry, I forgot to congratulate you on the actual day. Skype, of all things, warned me. But I missed it, so. But how was that? How'd that go?
No, it went good. I've got a little interesting story if you want to hear it. We went. Yeah, absolutely. Me and my lady friend went to one of those kind of posh hotels in the area. It's kind of like a 5-star thing as a treat. Nice. And we went to have we got the drinks from you get the drinks in a bar, and it's always ridiculously expensive. At least in the UK, you're talking like £14 for some drinks there, which is quite a lot. It's crazy. And I said to her as a joke, because it's one of those hotels where you charge it to your room, and you used to say, oh, put it on room 15. I said, wouldn't it be funny if we just charged like these drinks to like a different room? We just choose a room at random or something like that. And she goes, you can't do that because they're going to check your ID and stuff like that. So obviously I let it go. What would we know the next day when we got up in the morning and we go down after obviously our own partying session? Somebody charged drinks to our room.
Really?
Yeah, absolutely. So, I was like, well, we didn't actually notice it until we got back to our home. Then we went straight back to the hotel to demand a refund because we're like, wait a second, we didn't charge £24 of drinks to our room. Well, it had a different signature on it, something. So somebody had the same idea I had, except they actually followed through with it, which I thought was just hilarious.
Well, yeah, I know. Somebody overheard your conversation, was like,
Yeah, exactly. Yeah.
That's crazy.
So that was the highlight of my birthday, but which sounds kind of sad.
Yeah, shit. Did they at least order something good? Like
they ordered. Yeah, they ordered champagne actually, which I was thinking I didn't have champagne for my birthday.
Damn,
so.
Yeah. That's I guess
hilarious.
Go big or go home if you're gonna steal.
Absolutely. So next time we go there, I'm gonna steal their ideas.
There you go. Well, excellent. Well, aside from getting overcharged, and I'm glad they got that taken care of, right? You got that all taken care of?
Yeah, we got the refund. They're actually really good about it, because I was kind of expecting to go over there and they'll be really weird about it and go, oh, well,
Yeah, right.
Yeah. Then they straight away they didn't even question it. They just said, yeah, have a refund. I'm thinking, well, what else can I get away with now?
Yeah, no, like, wait a minute, we didn't actually stay here.
I know, yeah.
Well, cool. What else was I going to say? Anything else? Any cool finds or anything like that from the birthday week?
Oh, well, not really good finds. I mean, I got a few graphic novels from my girlfriend's parents. So I found out I've got quite which is pretty good. What did I get? I got the volume. I haven't got it near me. I would rather grab it. I don't know what it's called, so everyone's going to butcher me. Well, people are familiar with this. The Mass Effect series, the third volume of the graphic novel of that series.
Yes. Actually, I think that's a Dark Horse joint.
Yeah, it's a Dark Horse series. Which I haven't read it yet, so it's
I can't tell you about the story, but I've always dug the art that they do in those.
Yeah.
I'm on a press list for Dark Horse, so occasionally they show me previews of some trades, and you don't get the whole thing or anything, but you get some sample art and stuff like that, and those always catch my eye. They only give me stuff that's relevant, which is video game related stuff, but
yeah, absolutely. And on that note of Dark Horse, the other thing I got was is it the Hyrule Historia, the Zelda thing?
Oh yes, very beautiful.
was quite skeptical about getting that because I've pretty much heard everything about it. I thought, oh, there's no need for me to have that. I've heard all the timeline and stuff like that. But yeah, like you said, the artwork alone is worth it because I'm really massive into that concept art stuff. I love it, and just flipping through books. I also have the these are from different sort of birthdays and stuff, or just me purchasing myself. I also have the Mass Effect one and the Halo one, which are like all the concept art stuff.
Yeah,
which are really good. Yeah, I really enjoy those actually.
Believe it or not, one of the weirdest trades I purchased recently was also a Dark Horse joint, and of course I got a preview version. I was like, I want that. Was the Art of Remember Me? I really quite dug that. Yeah. So.
No, I totally dig that sort of stuff. Yeah, because I was thinking of getting the Last of Us version of that.
Oh, I bet that's awesome.
Yeah, I saw it. We entered a raffle when we went to a convention not too long ago, and we were like one number off winning it. And I was just like,
oh, that's worse than that's worse than any other loser. Like, you were so close.
It gets worse. The person that won it was this little kid, and you're thinking, you always want to say, slip the kid like 15 quid or something, just say, do you want to just give me that? I'll give you. And his expression on his face, he looks so pissed off he won it as well. I think he wanted something else, like,
Yeah.
Oh, I don't know, but yeah.
Probably his parents wouldn't let him like play the game, so he can't even enjoy like properly. He doesn't even know what it's about. So.
Well, I don't know what it is over there, but a lot of the kids, at least kids that I've met in this country, all they care about is either Call of Duty or FIFA. Well, yeah, the football game, FIFA. That's about it, really. So anything remotely different is just like, nah.
Ours is like Call of Duty and I'd say the other big one is probably either Skylanders or Infinity. Those are pretty big around here, I think. So, but.
At least in my area, I don't think Skylanders is that big, really. It's just surprising. So,
I didn't think so, but apparently it sells quite well, from what I can tell. I seem to, whenever I'm over at the GameStop or the Game Shop that I've chosen to visit, that's usually when I notice stuff like that. But yes, also, just for people who are interested, those art of books, one thing I do like about them is, as opposed to traditional trades, they have a hardcover to them. It's nothing crazy, but it's got some base to it. Actually, Jam, if you've ever, you've got the Hyrule Historia, that's really kind of how those art books have kind of the same sort of cover. So it's bolder than a normal cover, but I wouldn't say it's like classic textbook style.
No.
But yeah, they're pretty nice, and they sell for about $30. So it's a decent price.
Yeah, it's not bad.
Yeah, that's half of a copy of Retro Gamer magazine, that's 2 copies of Retro Gamer magazine at our local news store. So,
ouch.
Yeah, $15 a piece. Those import costs are brutal.
Yeah, 15. Well, it's £5 here. Well, so it'll probably stay on your magazine anyway. So
I'd easily drop a $5 on that.
Yeah, absolutely.
You don't even want to know their subscription rates. Like, they'll do it, but yeah. So, well, very cool. Anything else go on that you want to bring up before I go into a quick story?
That's all I can think of at the moment. I think I had something else, but no, you go.
If it comes to you, just let me know. For me, for the most part, just a lot of snow. Stayed home from work today because I got stuck out in the snow last year when I tried to brave it, and I wasn't messing with that today. Local retro shop by here, I went over to check them out. They were recently opened, and of all things, the one thing they have are a bunch of unused, used but unsold and not even for sale as far as I could tell, Atari Lynxes. So
wow.
Yeah, the shop owner made me a deal where he took a bunch of I've been trying to consolidate stuff, and I know this is like sacrilege to a lot of retro gamers, but I've gotten rid of a lot of boxes, like an original Sega CD box, an original Sega Genesis box, PlayStation 2 box, things like that. Like the boxes the consoles actually come in.
Got to clear that room, though. Clear room
yeah, exactly. And he said, you know what? If you give me all these, and there was a decent amount of them, he gave me a Lynx with a charge cable, like a plug-in-the-wall cable, and he gave me a choice, Lynx 1 or 2. I wanted the first one, the big hammer-fisted one. the big old bone. And I grabbed that, and then he included with it California games, because of course you got to get California games. Blue Lightning, Rampage, Ninja Gaiden, and I got to go look something else. Maybe Gauntlet. Maybe Gauntlet.
Oh, that's good.
Yeah, and he's got more games, but the Lynx is a tough one because no one really wants it. So to speak. Like, the Lynx has some mild desire, but nothing crazy. And it's worth a lot because there just aren't many out there. So you've got that dichotomy of, like, somebody's like, ooh, like me, like, ooh, I really want a Lynx. Oh, okay. Well, it's $40, it's $20 for the charge cable, and then each game's about $15 to $20, and you're like, never mind, I really don't want a Lynx anymore. And so who knows, he might be able to help that out. Oh, and it looks like none other than All Games staple, Tiger Claw is celebrating his birthday on, if you're downloading it today, which will be Wednesday, Wednesday, February the 5th. So congrats, sir. But anyway, so I got my hands on some Lynx stuff, and other than that, that's about it. Been playing a lot of Taito games. Oh, and actually,
Taito.
there was a lot of talks as to whether or not it's Taito or Taito. It's Tater Games, but I need to talk to John because I got a PCB board that's 100 or 310-in-1 arcade stuff. I don't know if you saw me talk about this, but I got it and I hooked it up to my JAMA, and it needs to be wired for a 6-button, and I guess the ground wires are moved around on a 3-button setup, and so it does not let me use the joystick interface until I rewire it. So I'm going to have to do a little side project on my cabinet before I can use it. So in the meantime, my cabinet is a true blue pit fighter cab for right now, which is not great. But hey. Well, I guess without further ado, we'll jump into a little bit of news, and then we'll get on to Taito games. So first news is Redux, a Dreamcast game that was kickstarted in 2012, has finally released. I believe it had a limited print run. It was roughly $50, I think, for the game on Dreamcast. And I'm guessing ISOs will be out there for you to download and burn it. But I haven't really done that much looking into it. And as we were joking about, of course, it's a shmup. But it has been reviewed out there, so, if you guys want to check it out, go take a look into it. I still think that development of, people like to call it homebrew, but I wouldn't call it homebrew. I'd say development of actual games, especially on dead consoles, is amazing.
Wasn't it? This is a Kickstarter, wasn't it? Back in, I think it was like last year.
They needed $50,000 and they got like $53,000, so.
just skimming it.
Just jumping over the line. Hey, but it passed, so.
There you go.
And apparently it's quite a good game that does some new stuff. We'll be talking about this, and I'll mention the Game Club list. Actually, I'll just mention it now because I always try to do it at the end of the hour, and it doesn't work very well. But on the Shmup Game Club, there's a game on there called Power Up, which is a XNA or an indie game on the Xbox Live Marketplace, and it's a very cool game. And Cysoft, the developer, does some really cool stuff with it. And I guess he's working on right now. I follow him obviously. He's been working on a port for iOS and I think Android devices, but I know an iOS port. So if you guys are interested in checking that out, it's $1. And, of course, I have a review on Gaming History 101. But yes, so the official 5 games are as follows. We are going to be doing Power Up by Cysoft on the Xbox 360. We will be doing Radiant Silvergun by Treasure, available on the Saturn for a really high price. Or you can obviously MAME it. It is in cabinet form as well if you want to pay ridiculous prices. And most people will drop the $10 to play it on Xbox 360.
Yeah, that's what I'll do.
You know what? I'm actually going to, for the video, and I'll talk about the video in a sec, I'm going to play the Saturn version. And
really?
Before people think I've got this really rare version, I do not in the case of Radiant Silvergun. In the case of Radiant Silvergun, I have a modded Saturn, so I'll just burn it. But I do own the 360 version, so I get to lie to myself and say it's kind of legal. But so number 2 is Radiant Silvergun. Number 3 is going to be Cinemora. That is available currently on Xbox 360, Steam, or PC. PSN available on the PS3 or the Vita. So you can pick that up. It's a very cool game by Grasshopper Manufacturer, Suda51's group, and we'll be playing that one. The fourth game in the list is, of course, I'm going to blank on it. Oh,
Velocity.
Yes, Velocity Ultra. But it doesn't matter which version. I'm going to play both versions just to get acquainted with them. Velocity originally released as a mini on PS3 and PSP, which is the version I'm going to have to capture gameplay from because I don't currently want to use my next-gen systems to capture gameplay, but I might make an exception for Power Up, but I don't want to go crazy with it. But it's on, that was the original version, and it's kind of a interesting multi-directional shmup of sorts. And Velocity Ultra recently came out, which is not, unfortunately, cross-buy, but it's been on sale a bit. You could have picked it up for like $2 on the 14 and 14, which I know, unfortunately, you guys didn't get in the UK. But it's a gorgeous port on the Vita.
It was on PS Plus in the UK.
Oh, no shit.
Yeah, really
okay,
well,
well then, so you guys. Okay, well there you go. So, and then last but not least, Jason, who is actually responsible for. He's actually responsible for our logo, for the wonderful logo we've got. A lot of you will probably know him better as. Hold on, let me look him up on Twitter, so as not to hack it. Albirhiza, Albirhiza. He's gonna be coming onto the game club, and his choice, he got to pick one, is going to be none other than the Dreamcast / arcade classic. Where did it go? Oh, damn it. He probably gave it to me in a tweet. This is great radio. Here we go. Gigawing 2 on the Dreamcast. Gigawing 2 is very easy to find. It's not too expensive, and it is on MAME as well. So there are a couple ways you can play that game. And he came up with the format for it. So just so people know, so if you want to get to planning, shmups are the type of games you play over and over and over again. So what you're going to want to do is we're going to do initial impressions, first no continue play, and then score, progress, difficulty, and full playthrough, and then a no continue high score challenge. I will post those up. Yeah, I will post those up at the end of the game club for Buffy at the end of this month. But yeah, we're going to be covering a lot of fun stuff, and you're going to want to definitely put in some hardcore extra time on these games and play them. But you can pick them up now. I've already started downloading them on my the ones that are appropriate that are applicable on my Vita and PSP, so I can start practicing up before I go big screen with it. He also wanted to do Life Force, which is a great game, the arcade version, also known as Salamander. And I didn't want to do that because I've actually done a Life Force game club. It's out there. Yeah. I don't think it's fantastic, but it was something. And so as a result, I might give him some time to we'll just bounce back and forth about it. But anyway, and it looks like Radiant Silvergun may be coming to Steam. I know that Treasure was working on porting a lot of that stuff to Steam, so that might be cool. Maybe they'll get it out by March so that it can be part of the game club. But if you guys are getting ready to download your games and things like that, definitely check it out. Great games, and if nothing else, I know most of you have 360s out there. Grab Power Up for 99 cents. Support that developer. I would love to see what he can do coming up on other in other areas. And then last but not least, this show is going to now be on YouTube as well. Starting tomorrow, it'll probably go live late tonight. I will port these over to YouTube, and just for you guys, I'm going to have gameplay footage throughout the entire thing. So today I played a bunch of games from the Taito Legends collection. Legends 1 on Xbox, Legends 2 on PS2, and I used my Street Fighter joystick, 15th anniversary big old cabinet joystick while playing it, so I had that authentic arcade experience. And during this little area, we open up with Paperboy, so that's what that's going to be. Paperboy 2 is actually what I play on the SNES. So I've got about probably like 12 minutes of that. So this is going to go a little long for that, but anyway. So without further ado, I think we should jump into Taito. I believe Taito is how you pronounce it. the point
Taito,
of contention.
Taito.
We will talk about Taito games. So anyway, so jumping right into it, just going to talk a little bit about the history of Taito. So, Jam, I know we talk about this from time to time, but were you acquainted with them from a long time ago? Did you know them really? Because they were kind of a developer/publisher, but was that top of mind when you started playing games? I mean, they were pretty pronounced even in the Super Nintendo days.
Oh, yeah. I knew them from, well, the first system I ever played on was an Amstrad computer.
Oh, well then, yes.
So that's where I first got acquainted with it. In fact, I think the first game, which I'll get to a bit later, the first game I played was a Taito game. Or Taito game.
There you go.
I'm going to be doing this a lot today. So.
Oh, no, it's fine. Yeah, and the pronunciation will go either way. I'm not going to stop you. One of my first games was as well, so...
And I did get a chance to play some actual arcade cabinets when I was younger as well, in the arcades in the UK. But there's only there's a small amount over here that I know of that are here. But yeah, there's a fair few.
And a lot of these games I did play in arcades. In fact, my first arcade game was a Taito arcade cabinet. I played at a video store, which we'll talk about in a minute. Yeah. And chatters and everyone in there, of course, you can jump in here too and talk about your stuff. But real quick, just so you guys know how Taito got its start and what they are. They're a little different than most companies because the company was founded in 1953 by a Russian Jewish businessman by the name of Michael Kogan. He started the Taito Trading Company, started out importing and distributing vending machines, which is not too uncommon with most arcade distributors and creators of the 80s, or 70s and 80s rather. Later they began leasing jukeboxes and eventually began to manufacture their own. And then they started doing the Carnival Fair electromechanical arcade games in the 1960s. Obviously they are best known, and we'll talk about this game in much more expansion in a second here, but their first arcade cabinet game was in 1973. And they changed to the Taito Corporation. But what they're best known for is in 1978, Toshiro Nishikado, designer at Taito, crafted Space Invaders. Easily one of the most popular titles of the arcade generation. And, of course, many people attribute it to being the beginning of the golden age of arcade games in Japan. And there is that lovely rumor that it caused a shortage of 100 yen coins. At the time in 1978, they were charging roughly $1. The yen wasn't quite as powerful as it is today, but roughly $1 per play of Space Invaders. So very interesting. Had a weird cabinet. I don't know. Have you ever seen a Space Invaders cab?
No, well, not a dedicated cab, probably just one that's been,
converted.
Yeah, absolutely. Converted.
Right. Well, the original one looked very interesting because it kind of had that 50s B sci-fi film to it. The bezel was most of the real estate of the bezel was taken up by artwork of crazy crustacean creatures and whatnot and aliens from beyond. It did not have any joystick. It just had a left and right button, and then obviously the fire button and then the start buttons. And it did have a weird I think it had something on the screen that kind of looked like outer space, because they couldn't really generate those graphics in the game. So and it did start, I believe, in just black and green, but it eventually went multicolored. I don't know. There were a lot of iterations to the arcade version of this game, but obviously it's one of the largest grossing games of all time, $2 billion approximately by 1982, which is roughly $5 billion today. So decent chunk of change, and that kind of made sure Taito was on the map for a good long time. But and when they hit, I mean, they really hit the ground running. You know what I mean? They started. They made a deal with Midway and started getting distribution in the United States around 1979, and then went out on their own right around 1980 in the United States and kind of developed a bunch of arcade cabinets that they'd continue to crank out through most of the 80s. They did go into the 90s with some more interesting games, and they were always kind of forward thinking with a lot of what came out, as we'll talk about.
Yeah.
But in the end, they found the software on consoles to be much more attractive. And then, of course, in 1992, they were going to release a console. If you guys didn't know this, a CD-ROM console called the Wow Wow Wow, WOWOW. That was basically going to be a Taito version of the Neo Geo, which, for those of you who have played the Taito arcade, or what is it called? The Taito Legends collection. Kind of appropriately named, too. There are a lot of games in there that are great that I didn't know existed.
Oh yeah. So
it would have probably worked out pretty well. They were going for a direct competition with the Neo Geo. Obviously, Neo Geo CD didn't go too well, and then they even contemplated doing a download only service, but the whole thing went defunct. Then they kind of hung out for a while, riding the coattails of Kyocera or Kyocera, depending on how you look at it, the cell phone and communications company. And then eventually on August 22nd, 2005, Square Enix became a massive shareholder, spending 45.16 billion yen. It's roughly 410 million, to make Taito part of the Square Enix veil. And that's kind of where they continue. Square Enix officially announced then in July 28th, 2008, that they liquidated two subsidiaries of Taito, Taito Art Corporation and Taito Tech Limited, on the grounds they had fulfilled their business purpose. But I do believe Taito's alive still today, aren't they? Just doing video game ports and stuff? I can't remember if they did anything new. Yeah, they have.
The live one that I could be wrong. I know that they did do a lot of. They didn't. I don't know if they developed them. There's a lot of DS ports of a lot of the older games, Bubble Bobble.
And then they've of course gone into the mobile space, and that's where they'll probably continue. Which makes sense, right? Because I know this isn't a unique thought, but mobile games really are the arcade games, especially free to plays, really are the arcade games of today. So. I love seeing gamers who are like, God damn free-to-players, why are the kids so into them? And I was like, it's exactly what your dad said when you sat there pumping quarters into pole position, dude. But yes, so anything you wanted to add about Taito as a company itself?
Well, no, I think you pretty much covered it there. I think the only thing I was going to probably mention is I think that, I don't know if I'm right here, but I think they were the first company to produce the crane machine that drew prizes in the 60s. I know you touched on that in the carnival section.
Yeah, and I did speed through it a little fast, but yes, honestly, there were a couple of people who were trying to do different things, and I called them carnival games because you think of places that have boardwalks, you almost think of I don't know, beach towns, Cape Cod, things like that, where you'd walk by and somebody would unshutter something and there would be these mechanical games. And yeah, I do believe, I could not substantiate this, but if they're not the first, they're one of the first to have, the crane game where you would go down and automatically get candy. It would probably be very short-sighted, and that's very typical even today in Japanese culture, to instead of have I don't know if you guys have them in Europe, but in America, at the grocery store, there's a lot of places where you can pop a quarter in, you turn a thing, and a piece of candy or bubble gum or some M&Ms pops out into your hand.
Yeah. We got that.
Yeah, exactly. And in Japan, those are very common still, but they put a little flair into it, and they still have the crane come down and pick them up, or it's or it's some sort of license or something. And if you ever watch Arino in Game Center CX, he frequently likes to play the candy games because he knows he's always going to win. So it's pretty charming to see. So if you guys ever check out an episode there and he goes and visits a game center, he always plays the crane games and stuff that exist. But yeah, I know they did some of that stuff. I was trying to find, it was a little hard to find stuff that was really ingrained. I think it's because I didn't want to pay, and I honestly, only use the internet for this week's show. But I'm sure there's some information, and we'll talk about it, especially in the game space. They were forward-thinking on quite a few games, both in terms of technology and what came to be. And I really think they get a bad rep for milking Space Invaders and Bubble Bobble a little bit more than they actually do.
Which, modern game companies say hi, like Call of Duty. Well, most companies.
Oh yes, no, Activision is definitely not guilty of anything like that. But yeah, and they are very well. Again, we'll talk about their arcade games, but they did a lot more arcade games than you probably think they did. The Taito Legends collections are available. 1 and 2 are both on PS2 and Xbox 360, Xbox original Xbox. Yeah. Which is kind of unfortunate because obviously the PS3 really wasn't for the most part backwards compatible, and neither were the Legends games. And there's some voodoo in the Xbox ones that simply only run an Xbox. They are not backwards compatible with the 360, so they're kind of hard to run. And then there is a PSP collection. Yeah, and you can speak to it, but I didn't. I wasn't too keen on the collection.
No, you're not missing much. I guess I'll touch on that a bit later, but I don't know, there's something about, because the PSP screen, some of the games work on it, but most of them, because of how the arcade cabinet was rendered, when you change the view of it on the PSP screen, you have to flip it on its side to do some of the machines. Which just doesn't look right.
And that's still odd. Especially when you're, I could see where like Space Invaders maybe it'd work. You use the D-pad for left and right and then up and down for shooting. But aside from Space Invaders, and I don't know how well the PSP deals with pushing 2 buttons at once, which you'd probably want to do, I can't see many of them working too well. But at least it's the right resolution. Unlike
the resolution's good.
Yeah, because a lot of them are vertical cabinets, which are basically best viewed as, think of a widescreen TV on its side. So, which is very indicative of the PSP. So, I don't know. I guess, without further ado, we just jump right into the good shit, the games.
Absolutely.
And, as is usually the case here, I think I'm going to progress in order of when they came out. If you don't mind.
Go for it.
But if I'm missing something or if something came out, definitely let me know. Because I am skipping over games I didn't personally play. So, the first game that I'm thinking of that I actually played, because for the record, they released probably 30 games before Space Invaders. That were versions of video arcade games, but I never played them. I almost thought I had played Western Gun, which think it was called Gunfight in America, and kind of think of Wild Gunman on a very basic scale. But this did come out on the C64 and C128. But it was just a shooter game without a light gun. But I think you pulled the trigger, so you would kind of watch the canned animation and pull the trigger at the right moment. So, did you play anything predating Space Invaders?
I don't think I have, actually. I've played, which one's it called? I'll just have a look at my list here. I played Wild Western, but I don't know if that was before Space Invaders or not. I can't remember the date of that one.
Let me check. Wild Western Wild Western's from 82.
Yeah, it's 82, I thought so.
And it is in the Taito collection. I thought that's what you were talking about, but okay. Yeah, no, that's coming up. But so number one is definitely, let's get out of the way. Space Invaders. Who hasn't played Space Invaders? I honestly don't think I've played Space Invaders all that much. Was this a very pivotal game for you growing up?
Well, probably not growing up, like at least my earlier games, but I think I did like Space Invaders a lot when I did try it, which was I think my first experience of it was on some really crappy emulated port on some system, or basically on a Windows computer. And I think
okay.
Yeah, pretty much. So but it just the simplicity of the game, and it's one of that. Some people kind of debate it's like the early shmup. I think I'm not quite sure if I'd say it is a shmup or not because of how it's designed, but it's I think it certainly it's been a huge inspiration for a lot of game developers in the past. One famous example is what's his name, Hideo Kojima from Metal Gear Solid. He quite regularly raves saying that the idea of Metal Gear came from Space Invaders, which seems a bit weird, but...
one thing he says about it, which is probably my biggest draw to it, and I felt yet again, is it's so funny how even a game from 1978, the way it works, and just in case no one's seen it before, there are typically 5 rows of aliens, and there's 15, 20 of them across. And there are different kind of classes. In the back are the squid guys. There's one row of them. And then there's kind of the not-so-squid guys. And then there's the big old cherubs or whatever in the front. They all kind of mostly look like octopi or crustaceans. And they slowly descend upon you, randomly shooting at times. You've got 4 bases, so to speak, that get destroyed either by you shooting them or the enemies shooting them. They kind of slowly disintegrate. And they're slowly descending on you, but it has this fun music, this dut. Dud,
yep, that's it.
Dud, dud, dud. And then as it gets closer, or as you kill off more and more of them, they start moving faster, and it's like dud, 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 dud. And when they get down, I mean, it gets really tense. At least it did for me, and I can see that tension being perfect for Metal Gear. Like, especially when stealth was less of a genre. And the original Metal Gear Solid, you know, when you were playing that first time and you're actually hiding around places and trying to catch people, and you realize you have to take it at a slow pace, like that tension was high, at least for me. Especially that first scene where you're sneaking into Outer Haven, like from the sub.
Oh yeah,
yeah. But anyway, but yeah, I really dug Space Invaders, even now. And I found myself, you'll see on the video, like I wanted to play one game and then I was like, well,
I'll
play one more, yeah. You know, but I had a lot of fun with it, and I do like it's a relatively simple graphic style, but it works, and it feels like that good vintage arcade game where you like appreciate it for its simplicity.
Yeah, absolutely.
This was ported to everything. My short list here: Apple II, Atari 2600, 5200, Atari 8-bit, Color FX. I don't even know what the Color FX is. Is that a microcomputer?
Color FX.
Okay.
Don't know.
Wikipedia doesn't either because there's no link for it. C64, Game Boy, Game Boy Color, Game Boy Advance, iOS, Java. It's released to Java. Mobile phone, MSX, NES, Nintendo 64, PC, PlayStation, PlayStation 2, PSP. The SG-1000, which is, I believe, the early version of the Mega Drive, or the Master System, right? Because the SG-3000 or Mark III is the Master System.
Yeah.
So the 1000 is the archaic version that was, I believe, only in Japan, but you guys might have gotten it in Europe.
No, we didn't get that. I know. So.
Gotcha. The lovely ZX Spectrum, of course. I don't know what the Sky Active is either. The SNES, the VG Pocket Caplet, the Virtual Console. Oh, yeah?
I know what the Sky Active is. I think if I'm right, I think that's actually, we have a TV service in the UK called, well, it used to be Sky, which is owned by Rupert Murdoch. If I'm right, I could be wrong. This is where people will troll me on the chat. But Sky used to have, you could play games off the TV, kind of like an early streaming type service.
I've heard of that.
Yeah. It was terrible.
Oh, awesome. Awesome. Yeah. Well, you know what? It had Space Invaders. So,
it had Tomb Raider as well.
No shit.
It did, yeah.
Man, I guess basically they bought the N-Gage services. I don't know.
Pretty much.
It was on the Virtual Console and the Wonder Swan, the lovely Wonder Swan, and of course the Xbox through Taito collection, the Taito Legends collection. They did switch it to color, as I indicated in the past. Only the Taito Memories Volume 1 collection on PS2 actually contains this version. I believe Taito Memory serves me, is only the Japanese version as well, so that's what it's called in Japan. So I don't know if it's in the American or European releases. I don't believe Space Invaders Color was an option in mine. I think it was just always in color.
It's not an option in mine either. So.
A version of color. And then it, of course, had many crazy ports. You know, there was, like adaptations of the game, shall I say. You know, there were updated, 88 versions and stuff like that, kind of like they did with Galaga. There was a Virtual Boy version of Space Invaders 3D or whatever. And then, of course, Space Invaders Extreme recently came out, and if you are a fan, I'm sure you may or may not prefer the PSP version, but I definitely like the DS version more. Space Invaders Extreme is an amazing DS game.
Oh, no, it's great. Yeah, absolutely. No, I'd say DS over the PSP one. So.
They worked the dual screen just a little bit better. It's the PSP one's a little too busy for me. But a really crazy and influential game. And again, it shocks me as to everyone's really been exposed to it, but it shocks me as to how well it kind of travels through time and still remains addictive as hell.
Absolutely, yeah. But it's just like, it's one of those early examples like you mentioned where just one, you play it once, then it's just one more game, which is the staple really
exactly.
for a lot of Taito games, really.
Yeah, Taito is very good for the one more game mentality, which again, if you guys are watching this video on YouTube, you'll see I tend to do that a little bit. I apologize if I didn't give much play to your favorite game, but, as I talk about my favorite games, I definitely spent more time with them, so. Let's see. In that same year, they'll also release Field Goal. Were you a fan of Field Goal?
Not really, no.
And I don't, Firdo Goru, I don't believe it's on the American version either. I think that was a Japanese only. So there is that. On the flip side, though, there is a very basic type of arcade game that is on this the Legends collection, known as Lunar Rescue. Did you play Lunar Rescue?
Yeah, Lunar Rescue is a lot of fun, I thought. It felt very I only actually played it this week, actually, to be perfectly honest. So, but obviously it has that very retro feel, kind of similar graphic style to Space Invaders in a way, but it really felt very ahead of its time for when it was released. Was it in the 70s? Right.
79.
Yeah, there we go.
Let me see. Yeah, if it wasn't 79, it was 80. 79, no. So, this will come out right around the same time as Space Invaders, which is fair, because it's kind of similar to Space Invaders in a lot of ways. I don't know. I didn't play too much of this one. I didn't much care for it, but from what you played, basically it's kind of like Lunar Lander, right? Because you take off and you can land, and there are like pillars that you can land on. Am I correct?
That's right. There's different sort of score pillars. So there's lower down pillars, there's 500, and there's 100, there's 200. But so basically, it's like risk reward. You can risk going lower to get a higher score, but then you got to remember you land first, and then you got to ascend and kind of go back to the spaceship. And while you're doing that, basically. As you're dropping, you're avoiding asteroids. As you're ascending, you're shooting aliens. But you're kind of constantly scrolling, which is really bad because that's probably what I don't like about the game so much, because it's really easy to die in that bit.
Yes. And I thought it was kind of cool, though, that they did, kind of dual duty as both, having the aspects of shooting the aliens up in the sky with Space Invaders, but also with the kind of physics-based Lunar Lander kind of feel. Although, as somebody who is not much of a fan of Lunar Lander, obviously I've got my my biases,
of course.
but again, it is on there. Taito themselves piggybacked the success of Space Invaders to sell the game in arcades, so I can see where it would where it would all fall under the same kind of veil. So, and it is on the Taito Legends collection. So, definitely.
It's also on the PSP version as well. So.
Okay. Well, that's good to know. Yeah. We'll obviously there are game lists available, but yeah, we'll be able to kind of mention those ones because I don't have that version. Then, of course, there was time for a follow-up. So in there have been differing sources. I'm going to say 1980, Space Invaders Part 2 came out, and this is definitely on the Legends collection and the PSP one.
Yeah.
And you know what? I'm going to say something right here and now. I know this is going to be terrible to say, but I've never played it before, and that hasn't changed. I did not play it this week. I tried to play as many games as I could, but I got hooked, and I'll talk about this as we get to them, but I got hooked to some games more than others, and I always meant to go back to Space Invaders Part 2 and never did. Did you play this?
I did, yeah, absolutely. Well, to be fair, you're not really missing much, Fred, because it's
okay, well, that's good to know.
Space Invaders Part 2 is basically Space Invaders again. It's the same game as the first one. It's got some minor differences this time. For example, the shields. The shields now have the number of the level kind of etched into them. And I think the sprites for the spaceship flying across are occasionally different. There's a few things like there might be some people who point out some. There's obviously going to be a few extra minor problems. Oh, the main difference as well is it's an overlay arcade cabinet, I think. So it's got the color in it this time, but it's the overlay color. So it's not black and white like the original. It's but I think the arcade cabinet. Cause I've got I don't know if you have it as well, but the PlayStation 2 game Space Invaders Anniversary Collection. Mm-hmm. Which is I've
not played it, but I'm familiar with it.
Yeah, it's got part 2 on that, and it's got it actually shows you the cabinet on that collection. It's actually an overlay version, so it's got the I don't know, was it green, blue, red, yellow, all that sort of stuff. But the baseline is it's Space Invaders again. It literally is part 2. It's just the same game. So
yes, it was often called Space Invaders Deluxe to kind of piggyback Asteroids Deluxe. That was a midway decision. When it was out here, so that may also explain that.
Yeah, but it's. I mean, I don't know. I guess this is quite. People complain saying, certain modern games are the same. This really does feel exactly the same, and this was done in 1978, 1980, like you said, or 79, or whenever it was released. So, yeah. So it really wasn't much different at all. It's at least compared to, say, games we're going to mention very soon, which were very different from their predecessors, stuff.
Yes. Hold on, real quick. Sorry, I was responding to something in chat. PSN is down in America via the website only, just in case you guys were wondering. Well, next we jump into 1980, and there is a discussion of a couple of. Interesting balloon games.
Oh God!
Did you play Balloon Bomber? I did not play Balloon Bomber. So.
I played Balloon Bomber. This was a funny one.
It's a shmup, from my understanding, in an archaic way.
It's more like Space Invaders again, kind of. But
oh wow, this is on Taito Legends 2 for PS2. I have Taito Legends 2 for PS2, so. I can go back and try this, but anyway, continue on.
It's definitely worth a go. It's an interesting concept. So this time you're I think you're kind of like it's like a World War game, and you're like the artillery, but you can move. It's like Space Invaders game where you can move across the plane, but this time there's basically bombs dropping from the top of the screen, and they're kind of going in a row, and you shoot with your artillery. Again, it's like the Space Invaders shot where it's like one at a time. You got to try and pick them off, but this time the bombs are shots are being fired down at you, and they damage the interior that you're standing on, and it's permanent damage. So say the floor that you're on, if it goes in the center, you can't move past it, so you're forcefully restricted. So it's quite tense, actually. It's actually nice. I recommend you play it, actually. You might quite enjoy it. I mean, I played it the first time and thought, this really sucks, because it seems so basic. But then when that shot goes down and it stops you moving across the screen, you think, oh, fuck. So,
actually.
It just mixes things up a bit. It makes it a lot harder. And then this situation can happen where you get a shot fire there, you get a shot fire the other side, and you just can't move, and you're just a sitting duck. So.
Yeah, again, tension still not lost on the boys and girls at Taito, especially in these early titles. So, yeah, actually, now I need to try it out, because games like that, and we'll talk about it, but Zookeeper seem to have that unique spin on something you can kind of idealize in your head, but something that kind of makes it crazier than you thought it would be. So, anyway, so there's Balloon Bomber. And then right on its coattails, which I believe it's only in the Taito Legends on PSP collection, is Crazy Balloon, which is a maze navigation game from my understanding. Did you play this?
I did, yeah. Okay. This one, I don't know what to make of it, really, because it's so hard.
Really?
But the problem is, it's obviously I'm playing it on the PSP. I'm wondering I would love to know what the controller was, because unlike the console versions, you know, the Legends Part 1, it shows you the cabinets. It doesn't show you the cabinet in this game, so you don't know what the cabinet was. So you don't know
it was a 4-way joystick only, as far as I know.
Oh, so yeah, so that makes sense actually, but because obviously I was playing it with the PSP little nub thing, which is, I don't know, that's just awful.
Right. Yeah, exactly. Plus, and I know this just from actually having an arcade, there's a lot of difference in having a 4-way joystick versus an 8-way, or in most cases nowadays like a 49 or 51 way where they've got like full kind of analog rotation.
Yeah.
Because Pac-Man and games like that are very easy with a 4-way controller because it can only be one of those points. But since I was using a Street Fighter controller, there were times, and you can kind of see it on the video, where it would glitch out and it wouldn't count like an up as a direct up or something like that because there was this weird kind of cross balance. And with an analog stick, I'm sure it's the exact same problem. So, but anyway, but no, the first game that I definitely played a ton of, and I kind of mentioned it recently on the Boss Battles episode, is none other than Phoenix in 1980, one of the earliest versions of the shmup. It was a vertical shmup, and basically you were, it was kind of a ripoff of Galaga. Is it Galaga
kind
or
of.
Galaxian that came first? I'm trying to remember.
Galaxian before Galaga.
Okay.
So.
Yeah, so it's kind of a ripoff of Galaxian down to the ship. But everything's got their unique twist, so it was in space. It kind of scrolled, but it was a lot of fakery. There's no parallax scrolling really going on.
Yeah, the background scrolls, but I don't think scroll at all. I think
it kind of hiccups. It kind of MSX scrolls. If you've ever seen an MSX shmup, you'll see what I mean, where it's kind of redrawing one line as it takes away another. But you're fighting Phoenix. You are fighting flying birds in space for the most part. And there's 5 stages. The first one, they kind of come down in formations at different times. The interesting twist to this, obviously, is that you have a force field, which can save your ass in many cases. Did you really get how or why that worked? Like, sometimes I felt the force field would trigger without my knowledge or say so. I don't even know if that was an animation or what, but
I found it pretty solid, actually. I triggered when I wanted to, but it's more the fact
it would always trigger when I wanted it to, but I felt like it triggered sometimes when I didn't want it to. But again, I was playing on a joystick or on an arcade, controller. It's very possible I just touched the wrong button.
Yeah,
so.
Maybe. Don't know.
But yeah, it was a good save me point. Definitely worked out. And then you will do 2 levels where you're kind of moving back and forth and taking out guys as they fly down to you. Then there is the fun crisscross level where they start as little balls and then they burst forth as large Phoenix that can lose their wings on either side, or if you hit them in the center, they die completely. And then there is a final boss, which is... What is that? Is it like the guy from Space Invaders grew a couple legs and he made a huge discotheque on a floating saucer, and he's like having a party, like he's having his own rave in the middle there, and Phoenix are coming down from above like crazy trying to take you out, and you've literally got to shoot through this huge layer of kind of like rock beneath him and then through the floor, but he's a one-shot kill once you get that far.
Yeah.
So... very easy game, actually, especially when you compare it to its peers. Even Space Invaders. Very easy game. It's the game just repeats after that, and most of the time I played, you got like 6 lives, I think, on the Legends collection every time you'd play, and I easily played through the game 2 or 3 times before I would run out of lives. So
I think the default arcade version was only 3 lives, I think. Like the original version, but I don't know.
Right. But you could still probably beat the game in 3 lives pretty easily. The one thing that kind of holds you back is, and I think this was done purposefully so, very sluggish, slow kind of movements.
Yeah.
And then the Phoenix purposefully are working in these zigzag patterns. Again, on the video you'll see it didn't take much to kind of outmaneuver me as the ship. So that's your kind of setback. So... but a cool game. It's great to see kind of the early progenitors with Galaxian that came out before everything kind of went horizontal and went nuts.
It's quite a graphical leap as well, I think, for most of the games at the time.
Oh yeah, Phoenix looked great compared to even the games that came out, like you said, at the same time. Like even Balloon Bomber and stuff looks fantastic compared to that. But anyway, and then moving into 1981, while we're staying on the topic of games copying games, you've got Colony 7, which was just blatant ripoff of Missile Command, in my opinion.
Yeah.
In like every way, shape, and form. I mean, for the most part, things are dropping or coming across, and you have a reticle that's like a plus sign, and you target things, and it shoots them, and you stop things from falling down. So,
was this? Did it have a trackball with this arcade, or?
I don't know. That was another thing. I could not find a picture of the cabinet.
Where's John when you need him?
Yeah, I mean, but to be funny, the game was ported to the 2600 by Atari Age in 2008. So
wow.
The reason it's funny is because Atari made Missile Command, so it's like moving your clone over to the to everything. But I was not too intrigued by Colony 7. I quickly moved on, but.
Yeah.
I don't know. Are you a huge Missile Command guy, or did? You
No, I'm not a Missile Command guy really. I'm not at all. I don't know. I've not been huge into that game.
Gotcha.
So,
yeah, I didn't much care for Missile Command. Most people don't even know what I'm talking about. I'm like, it's the game that John is playing in fucking Terminator 2.
Best game over screen ever.
Yeah, exactly. It does have the best game over screen ever, and that one did have a trackball. So I'm gonna guess, with the attention to detail and copying stuff, although I will give Colony 7 this, it has better graphics. It kind of looks like Sim City. But I would bet it had a trackball.
Yeah.
Unless for some reason Taito, in their ability to make all kinds of arcade amusements, somehow couldn't nail the trackball quite yet, but I doubt that. So anyway, and then the next one, which is actually, as far as I know, not on the collection, or any collection for that matter, but I definitely played a lot in the arcade, so I want to talk about it, is Lock and Chase, which came out in 1981. Did you ever play Lock and Chase?
No, I think this is the first one I haven't played yet. So.
Oh, okay.
Well,
and it's very interesting because Lock and Chase was actually a Data East game. So there is that, but I believe Taito published it maybe only in Japan or something. But basically, it's kind of a Pac-Man clone, for lack of a better term, in every way, shape, and form. So you're gonna start seeing this with Taito. They're not shy about pulling. Hold on, here we go. There you go. There's a look of it if you want to check it out in the chat there, Jam. But you play a thief, and he's being attacked by 4 policemen: Stiffy, Scaredy, Smarty, and Silly. Figure this. And you're grabbing little coins on the ground, and random treasures appear and take stuff away.
Right.
But yeah, Lock and Chase did find its way into a Dairy Queen by my house, and I definitely played it quite a bit. Needless to say, it was much more fun to play Pac-Man, though. I'm sorry to say, it wasn't a very strong clone, but I do have a weakness towards Data East games. So there's that. Also, and I think these are part of the collection, but if not, most people have played this in many forms, especially if you're a MAME person. A game I actually originally had on the Game Boy was the first time I played it, was Quix, or Kix, Q-I-X.
Yeah, absolutely. Yeah.
Yes.
That's how I played it, Game Boy.
Game Boy? Yeah, right. It was perfect for Game Boy. But basically, yeah, you're given a box screen. And if you guys haven't played this, there are many versions of this. And yes, MAME players, I'm very aware there are a ton of versions that reveal naked women. You basically are going around a grid. There is a creature, in the case of Quix, it's this interesting kind of, it's this line spectrum that kind of works with, it's supposed to be like a pseudo 3D effect, but it's this line spectrum that jumps around. And you're supposed to leave the border of the box of the frame of the screen and draw squares. You go out and then down, and then you connect the squares and it fills it up. And you have to fill up a certain percentage of the screen. and you've got to do it without being touched while you're drawing a square. You have to complete a square before the Quicks creature gets to you. Obviously, you can see the genius of this game is as real estate gets sparse, there's less places for that thing to go, and it makes it harder for you to draw boxes, and in later levels of Quicks, you have to do like 95% of the screen. Now, in original Quicks, and I'm pretty sure this was the case in Game Boy, they just did a fun little, shader effect like they do with the Tetris blocks.
Yeah.
And it was multicolored in the arcade. It was blue and red squares. But again, Japan has universally remade versions of Quicks where when you close a box, you are slowly revealing a picture of some kind. Sometimes it's appropriate, sometimes it's completely inappropriate.
Yep.
I forget what the name of it was, like Party Gals or something, is the large, like you have a ton of them on your MAME cab if you have a full MAME set. But anyway. So yeah. And then there were intermissions in the Game Boy version with Mario in them. So, I don't know. Quicks is a truly genius title, though.
Oh yeah.
I don't know. Was it very quintessential to you?
Well, it's simplicity, really. It's such a simple game that you just eats your time. Very much like Tetris in a way. Obviously, a different game entirely to Tetris, but it's like, even when you were younger, you just kind of, when you first played this, you were kind of like, what? I'm just drawing a line, and then obviously hours just pass, and your parents are happy because you're quiet in the corner while you're playing this.
Yeah, I think it has a special case. And by the way, it's called the Gals Panic series is the main one. In case you want to go look up scantily clad anime girls, which eventually I think get naked in the thing. I've never played them too much. But again, it was a simplistic concept. It worked. It was on a lot of microcomputers. MS-DOS had sticks, which was kind of a clone of it, and things like that. I was also very happy to see it. It's the arcade game in Bully.
Oh,
so when you go play arcades in Bully, that's the game you're playing, which was cool because I wasn't great with some of the mini game stuff in Bully, and I'm trying to remember, were all the classrooms? That was in the original PS2 version of Bully.
Yeah,
right?
No, it's the art class in Bully. That's like they did the whole reveal a picture thing.
That's what it is. It is the art class. Yes, I'm wrong. The arcade is something different. But yes,
it was his teacher.
Yes, that's correct. Yeah, he would make good stuff, and then eventually. That goes in an interesting direction. But it's always a charming game. I never play it for too long, but I really kind of dug it. So
yeah. It's very much, well, as its name, it's a quick game, quite literally.
Yes, and it works great as an arcade game. You can see that. And with naked chicks on a bar top, I can see that having some strength as well. So, but yes, Quicks was huge to me. And then let's see here. Next up, I did not play this. This is not on my collection, but was Space Dungeon, which did get some ports to Atari consoles. It's on the PSP version of it. Did you play Space Dungeon?
Yeah, I played Space Dungeon. The problem is that I didn't probably give this game enough time because obviously I was just trying to fly through as many games as possible. It's one of those.
Right.
Oh, I don't know how you describe this game, but it's basically you have a static screen. You can move between rooms. The idea is you collect treasure, as much treasure as possible, and get to the goal. But you got like enemies like following you and everything. It's quite a fun. I can see it being quite a fun game, but I just remember it just being brutally difficult because the enemies you can shoot the enemies with this very small like little line like laser. It reminds it feels like a very early version of like the twin stick shooter in a way. That's what. Yeah, it is. You play as like a little your sprite is like a little spot almost.
You know what's interesting? Actually, it makes me think of. Have you ever played the game? It was in the movie Cloak and Dagger, and it was supposed to be the video game Cloak and Dagger, but it's not. It's actually an Atari game with a different name. And this sounds very similar, where you play a guy and you're it is kind of twin stick shootery, where you're shooting in all directions, kind of. And you're just trying to collect things in a level, and then a bomb goes off in the middle of the room, and you have to get out of the room before the bomb obliterates you.
Yeah, it's very similar.
You know, it starts in the middle and kind of moves out. So I wonder if this is another one of those kind of pseudo clones, but I don't know for sure.
Kind of, but there's without the bomb exploding. You just basically just have more and more enemies. It's similar because if you stay in one room, you're going to just be overwhelmed. You just can't. There's certain enemies that are just too difficult to take out if you just stay in the room, basically. Because they'll just keep on coming.
Right. Very cool game. I mean, sounds cool, I guess. So yeah, I guess if you get a chance, the name Space Dungeon
it's a weird
sounds
name.
very appropriate for.
Suited, yeah.
So next up, I know Alpine Ski is on the collection. Did you play Alpine Ski? I didn't really find it to be anything special.
I played it, but again, it's not hugely. It's not much to write home about. It's
a skiing video game.
Yeah.
Get that. You're going to be doing some jumping. There are going to be some obstacles, possibly a tree. Very colorful, though. I'll give it credit for that.
Oh, yeah.
But the reason I'm kind of rushing through it is because of a game I definitely want to talk about, which is Jungle Hunt.
Oh, yeah, absolutely.
Jungle Hunt is the first arcade and probably video game I've ever played.
Oh, really? Oh.
Yeah. Yeah, and again, it's kind of a clone. It kind of is a Pitfall clone, but as we'll talk about in a second here, I don't want to call it that because there are many drastic differences from this and Pitfall. But I don't know. So obviously you are familiar with Jungle Hunt.
Oh yeah, absolutely. Wasn't it? It was formerly called something else, wasn't it? But
Jungle King.
Yeah, that's it. Jungle King.
Yeah.
But it was changed due to legal problems or something. So.
Yes, I can. Well, it originally started off as Jungle King, and they switched it to Jungle Hunt because of
Tarzan?
something. Oh, Edgar Rice Burroughs' estate for copyright infringement.
Oh yeah.
That's why they got sued by Edgar Rice Burroughs. So there you go. Because the character apparently looked a lot like him. I can see that. Yeah, obviously he was the American writer who did Tarzan. So I think that was the big problem with it. Because Jungle Hunt is a 4-stage game. In the first stage, you are jumping from vine to vine. But the guy looks like kind of a... on the box art, he looks very clumsy. In the game, he just kind of looks like a very basic explorer, you know, with your tan shorts and your tan shirt and the little bowler cap, you know. But you're jumping vine to vine in kind of a pseudo... It's got like pseudo-physics. And stop me if I'm wrong, Jam, but he had an amazing leap.
Oh yeah,
when he would
it's
leap
huge.
vine to vine.
Like...
and it's weird to play it, right? Because it's the same regardless. It doesn't know where you are in the swing because arcade games didn't do that at that time.
Yeah, you could be at the top of the rope or the bottom, and it wouldn't matter.
Exactly, and you could be going back the other way, but he'll have that forward lurch no matter what. But the tough part is you can barely see the vine you're about to jump to. So you're tempted to get the rhythm going, but since it's all random and you can't really see the vines until it's too late, you kind of got to bide your time, shall I say. This game is definitely a game where patience is the easiest way to get through it.
I don't think there's a time limit either, so you can literally take your time.
Yes, and you've got a limited number of lives. Again, in the collection, you got like 6 lives. I'm sure the arcade, it was like 2 or 3, or you could be toggled by dip switches.
Yeah.
Every version I ever played of this had 2 lives, which is why I rarely saw beyond the second level. The second level is the most bullshit, in my opinion. It's swimming and stabbing gators, but the hit detection is a little less than fair.
Yeah, it's horrible. It's just...
Yeah, you'll see, and he whips out a knife, so you basically look like you hit the gator and then you die. And I'm trying to remember, I kept dying from running out of water or running out of air, and I couldn't ever figure out if I had to just go to the surface to get air or if I had to get trapped in the bubbles. But I almost think it didn't benefit me to get trapped in the bubbles. Do you know?
You can it didn't benefit you to get trapped in the bubbles, well, because I think, at least for when I played it, the gators would get you, basically, doing that way.
Right.
So you're temporarily kind of stopped in that way. But I guess but to get the air, you just go to the surface. So...
Yeah. So I drowned because I hung out down underwater. But it was kind of cool that they kept that in there.
Oh, yeah.
You know what I mean? And this is also the longest stage. Jesus, it seems to drag on forever. Like, you'll get a good rhythm going, and I will take out, like, I think I took out every alligator the bayou could possibly throw at me. I've killed more gators in a single run of Jungle Hunt than I have in my entire 60 hours of Assassin's Creed 4. And so, yeah, it was very unnerving. But when you finally get to the end and that cliff never looked better, you know, you kind of crash into it and he just kind of climbs out. Then you're running up a hill dodging rocks. Now, I'm guessing, did you beat the game at all?
Yeah, I beat the game. Yeah.
Okay. I didn't get to on the video playthrough, but I went back and I played it. And I remember this because I played it so long that when I recently sat up, my legs, I was sitting Indian style, and my legs were asleep, basically. And I tried to walk, and you do that weird thing where you kind of fall to the floor. But yes, the rock one, you're running up a rocks, and you just kind of jump with momentum. And then there are big rocks where you got to kind of run under them, which I thought was pretty cool. I don't know. Did you ever manage to jump over one? I don't know that you're able to.
I didn't. Well, I tried to, but I died. But I've not successfully jumped over one yet.
The rocks defy gravity. We should mention.
Oh yeah.
Because it's not true scrolling, so they kind of just hover in the air as you run under them. You've got like a limited period of time where they kind of levitate, like Luke Skywalker's controlling them or something. And then in the end is the bullshit natives where you jump over two of them and then grab the girl who's hanging from a tree and make sure not to jump in the pot of stew because, of course, they're cannibals and, of course, they want to cook your girlfriend.
Of course.
And then, like everything else by Taito, rinse, repeat.
Yep. Start again.
But it's a great game, addictive as hell.
Oh.
And when I was a kid, it was perfect for, just a run, But, I don't know. Did you have anything else you wanted to add with Jungle Hunt?
Oh, no, already. I think we definitely covered that one.
Yeah. Next up was Mr. Do. Got to talk about it just because it's their ripoff of Dig Dug.
Oh, yeah, absolutely.
Yeah, in every way, shape, or form. I don't know. Is there anything you wanted to say about it? I really haven't. Again, I wasn't huge on Dig Dug. Obviously, they did a Neo Mr. Do, which was kind of like updated it for the Neo Geo, which is kind of cool. It's very bright and colorful. I suggest people check it out. But to me, Dig Dug's easier to find and probably the better way to play this game. But it is the basic, concept that you're just kind of digging and trying to collect stuff. If you've ever played Mario 2 and gotten to a desert level, you're pretty much playing Dig Dug or Mr. Do. But I don't know, Jam, was there anything you wanted to talk about in terms of Mr. Do? I don't think it's on the collection, though.
No,
I think there might have been license concerns.
Of course.
Taito really, was very casual, and they all were back in those days. They're not alone over ripping each other off, but then when you make these collections, you got to be a little safer with it.
Yeah.
So
I say that Dig Dug was a lot easier to play around here than I don't think I ever saw a Mr. Do at all. I did see I've seen a few Dig Dugs though. So.
Yeah, I think I don't know if I've actually ever seen a Mr. Do arcade, but I've seen them a lot because I run in the Japanese circles. But again, I don't think I've ever seen one in the flesh. And I don't even know if I've ever played a Mr. Do other than when you go through your MAME when you first set up your MAME cabin, you're going through all your MAME games, and you're like, which one will I play today? You put on Mr. Do, and you're like, oh, this is Dig Dug, and you just exit out of it. Anyway. But not too similar to other games, is you mentioned it earlier in the show, was the lovely Wild Western game.
Oh, yeah.
Which is on the collection, I should point out. I don't know. I've been flapping a little bit about obviously about Jungle Hunt. You wanna tackle Wild Western here?
Well,
or did you not really much care for it?
I didn't really much care for it. That's the problem.
Okay.
Yeah.
Well then I guess never mind. But yeah, it was a pretty basic game. I don't know.
Wasn't it? I think there was some sort of the whole game was some inspiration from Stan Lee or something. That's all
Well, it was based off of the Wild Western comics that came out bi-weekly through Marvel or something. But it was one of Stan Lee's original. He was the original editor on it, and Marvel, wouldn't really celebrate the Stan Lee era until the '60s. So this is kind of what Stan Lee did beforehand. But it was a pretty basic shooter, I guess I would say. And it's not even really a shooter, but you'll see this Taito has ways of taking concepts and adapting them into other like kind of genre bending games, I guess I would say. And this is kind of like an early version of kind of the not really the walk to the right shooter, but kind of.
I was guessing it's kind of vertical scrolling, really, with the train and center, horses.
Yeah, I mean it's a Western atmosphere, and you're just kind of running around shooting guys, aren't you?
Yeah, you're trying to just take out the bandits, really. So and that's about it, really. And obviously you're racking out points and wash, rinse, repeat. So for the title.
Okay. Yeah, so I remember this. Okay, yeah. So that was Wild Western. But Zookeeper came out in 1982 as well. And Zookeeper is very cool.
Yeah.
I think this is a very unique game, actually. This is probably one of the more unique games of this era, especially coming from Taito. I don't know, were you a big fan of Zookeeper?
Oh, absolutely, yeah. This is again, it goes back to that kind of simple idea, but just a ton of fun to play.
Yeah, and it gets crazy very
fast.
So, it defies all gravity. You're basically a zookeeper that can run in 360 degrees around a square. It must have a center of gravity. That zoo must have a center of gravity. Or is that supposed to be like us looking down on it, but they just are showing us the easiest way they can do it? I don't know. It was very interesting.
It's like an early Mario Galaxy or something. So.
Yes, it very much is, because you're running. You basically, like gravity. Gravity exists on every surface of a rectangle, and if you go left or right, he'll just turn the corner and switch gravity up, as he does it. Or you can even jump. You can do a jump where you can literally jump around like two sides
absolutely.
of it. He's got a floaty jump that would make Master Chief jealous. And everywhere he walks, he puts down brick to kind of hold in these animals, and there are animals in the center. And they are slowly chipping away at the brick as he's slowly kind of rebuilding it, and the goal is, in a time limit, to keep the animals in the center. But then, of course, they complicate things. Like some animals can break through it, or there's a lot of animals, and you get scored based off of how many animals are still in the zoo when the timer runs out. And then, of course, they'll start with animals on the outside that you have to avoid by this big floaty jump. And TC's saying, I believe John has a zookeeper in his basement. Yeah. I do believe he does. I think it's in the video.
It's one of his favorite games, I believe, as well. So
again, like we were saying here, it's a very basic concept that is addictive as all hell. So
it's got quite.
And then eventually. What?
It's got quite a Donkey Kong feel to it. Not in the terms of like it plays like Donkey Kong, but it kind of goes through kind of different types of levels as well. So you have the bits later with the platforms, and you got to save the girl where the monkey's throwing the coconut. So maybe it's,
there is. Where you got to jump the platforms and dodge the coconuts. That's like every third level or something, and you got to get to the girl. And the interesting thing is the monkey will drop the coconuts on either the left or right side and then switch it up.
Yeah.
So sometimes you'll leap right into certain death. And his jump doesn't feel as floaty. It probably is, but it didn't feel as floaty when I was doing those levels.
And then there's also there's one other with the stairs where it's sort of like, it's kind of like a 2D plane again, and then there's like just a constant stream of animals. You just got to jump over them to get to the girl again, but you go up 2 flights of stairs.
That's right, yeah. And at first I didn't know what I was supposed to do there, because they call it a bonus round, but you can get a game over in it.
that's what I thought. I thought, why not a game over? So.
Yeah, well, especially because when they're explaining the game to you, it's not a very good tutorial, because it just wants you to just kind of, it just shows you jumping animals. So at first you're like, oh, this is what this game is. I'm just going to jump animals. Not really the case.
No.
So it's, but yeah, this is a game where, and Yogi's in the chat, and he's talking about it. This is a game where, it's a very simple concept, and like Donkey Kong, they switch it up a little bit, they build on it, and what you get is a game that you would definitely want to have in your collection, and it is unique. I don't think there are many games like Zookeeper, if any.
I don't think I see a copy of this at all on the Atari or anything.
Well, and it's, no, I don't think Zookeeper came out on really anything else.
No, that's a good point, actually. Yeah.
Yeah, it really wasn't ported. Obviously, it's in the Taito Legends collection, but otherwise, I don't think it was ever really ported. Taito probably holding firmly to either... Well, no, it wouldn't hold firmly to the popularity. It would want it on as many consoles as it could. So maybe it wasn't popular at the time? I don't know. Hindsight's 2020. So I do know that it like Donkey Kong and Mario Brothers and various other cabinets, it's the one that's super popular when you're looking on Craigslist and stuff. They try to get 700 or more for them like right off the bat. And I don't know how rare they are. That would be a John question, but anyway,
I've heard the cabinet's really hard to maintain if you've got one.
I bet it is, and it is back in the times of the early '80s, especially with Taito cabs, where it's its own wiring. So
yeah. There
you go. But next up is 10-Yard Fight. Most people probably played this on the NES. Apparently, there's an MSX port.
Oh, wow.
Jam, I don't know if you played the MSX
no, I didn't
growing
play
up.
that.
But,
oh, no.
I played it... Oh, sorry?
I played the MSX, but not this game. So.
Gotcha. I've played this mostly on the NES, but 10-Yard Fight was great. Have you ever played 10-Yard Fight?
I haven't, no. I've not tried this.
Oh, man, this is so good. So, the ball gets spiked to you, okay? It's one of those funny things where it's not actually, and I should point out, this is a published Taito game. I.R.A.M is actually the developer, the guys who made R-Type and whatnot. But yeah, it's basically a vertical, scroller, which makes sense because, it's a football field. And you basically get the ball and you have your defensive line is like in a square surrounding you. So it's kind of like a rampart, and you just kind of charge up the field as a runner with the ball and try not to get tackled, and you see how far you can get. And that's it. And so it was pretty fun. But again, it has a limited appeal. I did review 10-Yard Fight, I believe, on Gaming History 101, though. I'll double check that real quick. But I'm pretty sure I did review 10-Yard Fight. So, but yeah, it's a charming game. Again, much like Tecmo Bowl, it's just one of those games where before you could actually emulate the true sport. It was just a fun concept that borrows from it. So, but anyway, let's see here.
Yeah, it's here. It's an NES.
Yeah, I did.
I found it.
Yeah. So anyway, I did cover it, and I think I give it a decent amount of coverage, actually.
Yeah,
for what it is. Yeah, I know, right? So if you want the best 10-Yard Fight review, because I've got no competitors, there's that. But let's see here. So next up, there were a couple of other games. I did not play them, though, such as BioAttack and Birdie King. And then there is the lovely... there was Crack and Pop. Did you ever play Crack and Pop?
I think I did, but let me just check which one that is.
It's like pre-Bubble Bobble.
No, I did play it. Oh god, no, I didn't like this game.
I did not like this game either, which is weird because I'm sure we'll talk about it, but I loved Bubble Bobble.
Yeah, I love Bubble Bobble.
But yeah, this kind of predates it.
It's just...
And it had a port on the Master System, but that's about it, and only in Japan.
Oh, right, yeah, there you go. No, I played this, so I didn't really care for it. I don't know. It was just too sluggish, and just the controls are weird. And,
it's on Legends Power Up. Oh, and it's on Legends too. Okay, so maybe I've had an opportunity to play this, but I've not.
Yeah, I think it's on Legend. I've got it on. Is it on Legends 2? I've got the case here with me.
Yes, it's on Legends 2.
Yeah, it is on there. Yeah, absolutely. Yeah, it's so you're kind of this little. What the hell are you? Like a small little yellow.
You're Kirby with feet.
It's got the enemies from Bubble Bobble in it, like the ghost enemies, and you basically lay bombs in it. But you can also, again, you can kind of have this defying gravity kind of thing. You can like walk on the walls, like you can go like literally walk on the ceiling and stuff. And basically, you've got to bomb the cage with the heart in it, and then the heart goes flying away somewhere, and you've got to chase after it and go get it. But when that happens, you usually have to go through like a load of ghosts or something, and it's just. I don't know. It's not difficult. It's just really kind of the controls are just
boring.
Really, boring, and it's awkward.
I don't know. I mean, but I actually have a severe problem with the next game we're going to talk about, which is Elevator Action.
Oh, really?
Actually, I find elevator action to be ridiculously boring. But just for people who know, I mean, basically you play Agent 17, a.k.a. Otto, and you have to descend 30 flights to the bottom of any one building. And guys who are coming to look for you come out of random doors and staircases and stuff like that. And you can jump and shoot, and you can jump on top of the elevator or in the elevator to kind of move around, and then eventually there are staircases to switch it up. And then they do some kind of interesting things where, like, there are lit, hallways and unlit hallways and things like that, and red doors and whatnot. Kind of cool, kind of conceptually, like, an interesting idea, but I just never really cared for it. I don't know. What are your thoughts on elevator action?
Yeah, I mean, I found it quite, I don't know, I found it kind of easy, really, in a way, because you can, like, at least for the first round of it anyway, where you can literally kind of just hang on the first elevator and go down almost like half the level, really.
Yes, I should point out you can duck.
Oh yeah, you can duck.
And that allows you to dodge bullets and then shoot guys in either the crotch or the kneecaps, depending on what you think it looks like.
It's kind of fun. I mean, I don't know. I can see some people like enjoying it more than like we're describing. Absolutely,
right.
It probably has its fan base, I imagine, but I don't know. It's all I felt that I was doing most of the time was just ducking and shooting. That's it, and not. Oh yeah, there's the very occasional jumping over a bullet or something like that, but it's very slow as well. It's not as sort of fast as the other types.
Like extremely slow in both the way everyone moves and stuff like that.
Yeah.
And actually, this will be a trend for a lot of the mid-'80s games they make. I'll mention this just because it almost works completely in line with this, is Legend of Kage, which probably much more popular on the NES than on arcade. But did you ever play Legend of Kage? It's mispronounced Legend of Cage, K-A-G-E.
Yeah, that's what I'm thinking.
By almost anyone who talks about it, yeah.
Absolutely. Yeah.
Yeah, and you're basically a ninja who's leaping vertically up through trees, and you're just trying to avoid, things. And it kind of goes on forever. I think it's a vertical form of the Endless Runner. That's very popular nowadays. But it was okay. I never really cared for it. Again, I found it to get just boring eventually. But I don't know. Are you particularly fond of Legend of Kage? Because I'm one of those people who says it's not a good game, but a lot of people think it is.
I mean, Legend of Kage is okay. It's a lot. I felt it was a lot faster than elevator action. It's a bit more ninja-y. Ninja-y, but I mean that, it's all kind of, I don't know what the hell.
No, that's a word. That's a word. We're going to go on record and call that a word. It's an injury.
And that time, you can kind of climb the trees in this one as well, and you've got another crazy gravity-defying jump again with Legend of the Cage, literally.
Yeah. By the way, the Ninja Kage or Cage has a vertical that would make the entire NFL pro team or NBA pro team nervous. It's pretty great, but yeah. Legend of Kage is okay. I don't know. It's on the Virtual Console if you guys want to try it out. $5, what can you lose? Then I think the next game that I'm familiar with is some heavy hitters in 85, starting with Tiger Heli. Have you ever played Tiger Heli?
Oh, it's remind me what that one is. Is that the helicopter?
Sure. It's a vertical shmup where you're a helicopter.
Yeah, I think I have played this one. Yeah.
All right, and I've kind of talked about it. If you listen to the soundtrack episode, I actually play the music from Tiger Heli on the NES, but it's identical in the arcade. It's just a little more adapted and sounds better. But Tiger Heli was kind of a crazy game in that you would shoot things in the air and on the ground. You could get little helicopters to assist you, and Taito will use this in a lot of its shooters moving forward. But he's got two bombs, and when he drops them, they kind of blow up the whole screen. And if you get shot in the bombs, it will also unleash them. So it was kind of a cool little game. NES port. I've actually got it on the NES. It's just a great game. But it's a very addictive vertical shooter. A little easy, and spoilers, if you guys want to get through it real fast, hold A, press start anytime you get a game over on the NES game, and it'll let you continue because the game is long, especially for a shooter. Like, you play through it and you're like, how did anyone beat this in one life? Memorization, kids. But and then in '85 is also a game very near and dear to my heart. It's a Laserdisc game that came out at around the. Yes, it's the next step in Dragon's Lair. They were trying to rip it off with a game called Time Gal. Have you ever played Time Gal?
I haven't played Time. I know of it, but I haven't played it.
Oh, okay. Oh, it's this great, ridiculous game where an anime girl goes forward and backwards through time, and it very much plays out like Dragon's Lair. I think the whole thing is 8 minutes long if you watch the whole video, and I'm sure there's a million YouTubes of it. And it was on the Sega CD, which is where I have it. I think it was ported to the Saturn as well. And, of course, there's a laser active version, which I'm always on the lookout for. But
no 3DO version, then?
No 3DO version, unfortunately. Apparently there's an MSX version, though.
Really? Oh my god.
Yeah. So who knows? But Time Gal is actually a decent game. Again, if you go into it knowing it's Dragon's Lair, Space Ace type of game. So it's the anime spin to that kind of game. And then I should just point it out, obviously, Arkanoid came out in '85, which is a complete ripoff of the Atari game Breakout from '77. So because it's a blatant ripoff, most of us know Arkanoid probably from its kind of adaptation on the Game Boy, but yeah, it was okay. It had a lot of ports. And then right there in '86, one of the first Nintendo games I ever played. Definitely Bubble Bobble.
Yep.
Easily one of my favorite Taito games, hands down. How do you feel about it, Jam?
Yeah, no, definitely. It's almost one of my favorite ones, but we're yet to get to my favorite one, but we'll get to that soon. But
I promise we will move quicker.
Oh no, we're only a year off the next one.
Oh, good. I'm kind of curious as to which one it is, but anyway.
Yeah, like you, I think because am I right thinking your first experience with the NES version, or?
Yes.
Yeah, that's same with me as well. I played the NES version of this, and I think the NES version was the easiest version as well because you could quite easily continue off from where you left off.
Yes, it has a continue option. It's the easiest version. And let's not forget, I think this was one of the first games that made co-op fun.
Yeah.
And especially because you could die unlimited times and just keep continuing. I love this game with my sister. Your sister could play it. Nowadays, it's definitely the girlfriend/wife game.
It is, yeah.
Or the non-gaming partner game. Couch co-op still rocks on this. It's on the Virtual Console. Playing it on the Taito Legends collection, I'm realizing I do enjoy the NES game more.
I'd agree. Yeah.
It's got kind of it's a little rare on Nintendo. Like it's like $35, a little expensive for a Nintendo game. I highly recommend the Virtual Console version. It's got 100 fun levels. You play Bub and Bob, who are burping bubbles. And the cool thing is the jump mechanic, where you can, if you tap the jump at just the right moment, you can ride the bubbles. And this becomes a heavy mechanic for some of the later stuff. And then I really like that everything you get is pretty much food. Very, very food conscious,
Yeah.
These Bubble Bobble guys. You're eating all kinds of stuff. If you're hungry while you're playing the game, you're definitely going to be even more hungry when you're done. And there's a mechanic that's in the NES version as well, but it's from the arcades, which is an interesting one where if you spend too long on a level, and Taito did this a lot, you would get the hurry up warning,
Yep.
and then the invincible ghost that could kill you in one touch pops up. And I think it was to prevent people from dicking around on the arcade game and stopping Taito from getting more money. So I thought that was pretty interesting. But Bubble Bobble, great game. Highly recommended if you've never played it, especially on the NES.
It also had this kind of special, this interesting technique you had to kind of master, which is where you jumped on the bubbles by holding the jump button, which is really difficult to get used to if you're quite new to the game, and that's kind of like your key to completing it.
Yes. Yeah, especially the last boss. There is a last boss, and he's pretty crazy.
Oh god, yeah. Oh my god. I don't know how people do this in the arcade. So.
Yeah, I lots of quarters.
Yeah.
Oh wait, I don't know if you can. I don't think you continue in the arcade.
I don't think you can. Not that I know of, but I think you can. There are versions available now or whether they were back then as well, where you can continue off. But the version on the Legends collection, you can't. So.
Right. Yeah, I don't know how you get through all 100 levels. It's just I'm good, but I'm not that good. There were some crazy pickups too, like the shoes that made you faster and stuff like that. The level design was pretty fun. There were like some heart levels and things like that, like literal hearts. And there's fun little concepts. I bet they had a ton of fun making that, and it really is the pinnacle of the. It's kind of that concept we saw in Donkey Kong on the Game Boy, where they take level design and make like hundreds of versions of them, and it's pretty cool. So. Well, moving right along, we've definitely got to talk about this one, and it's a major series for Taito. And if you get the Taito Legends Collection 2 especially, it's kind of the highlight of it, is Darius, or Darius, as it's known.
Or whatever it's called.
Which is, yet again, in keeping with Taito's theme, it's a very crustacean-based side-scrolling shmup. And it's a rock-solid shmup. I definitely covered it on the whole series, and it has grown. Every version of Darius is pretty crazy and awesome. There's some amazing ports on the PC Engine or TurboGrafx 16, which I do have those ports. But most notably was, since we're talking arcades here, is the first arcade cabinet was one of the earliest versions of the crazy widescreen. It had a one-way mirror, and it had 3 vertical screens side by side to make up one massive widescreen, something crazy like 16 by like. It was like, it wasn't 16 by 9, it was something crazier than that, like 32 by 9 or something. It was a really weird resolution where you saw a massive amount of the screen all at once. And I'll put this in the chat, but if you guys haven't had a chance to look at it, go to Gaming History 101 and look it up. It's a crazy resolution. And it had, we kind of talked about this again when we were talking about Guardian Heroes. It had an inconsistent level design. Like, you would take certain paths, and then you would only see there were certain paths to the end of the game. And so you'd only see little versions, and you have to really play the game over and over again to see every level. So, I don't know, is this your game? I'm guessing not, but...
Oh, no, this is not my game. But I do like this game a lot, though. It's, the version I played, I don't think it's this one. I think I played, what was it called? I'm thinking of the other stuff. I've got the Darius Gaiden and G Darius, Which is
Darius G is really cool. I think that's on the Treasures collection. And Final Darius or something. Actually, I might be thinking of R-Type Final, but there's a lot of versions in the collections, and some of them are the only way you can really get your hands on the later sequels. So it's heavily recommended that you get your hands on those. The games continue in really cool ways in the later ones, and it might be Gaiden or Darius G is the one where you recruit mid-bosses to fight for you if you defeat them in the right way. So... crazy concepts. Very cool. And it's seafood all over the place.
Yeah.
It's just
sushi.
Yeah, exactly. So, all right. Well, moving right along. Let's see here. Coming up next, I'm trying to see. Is it Kiki Kai Kai?
Nope.
Okay. And I did not play this game, so we'll move forward. Let's see. What's next? Renegade.
I don't think
No,
I didn't.
Renegade is okay. Well, I'll talk about it real quick. It's an early predecessor to Double Dragon. It was made by Technos. Again, Taito just published it, and again, it's a predecessor to Double Dragon. And you can definitely see some of the roots, especially in some of the ports like the NES and the Master System port. That would later go on and. I believe one of the versions, maybe the NES version, kind of has the Kunio-kun, art style, much like the Technos version of Double Dragon on the NES did as well. But anyway, Renegade's pretty cool, and I guess that's all I can say about that. It's not Slap Fight, is it?
No way. No.
You're like, where the hell is this list from?
Slap Fight, that's great.
Keeping going. Obviously, Double Dragon was published as well. We've talked thoroughly of Double Dragon, so... and it's not EXZISUS?
No, but I did play that.
Why don't you just tell me what the game is?
It's the sequel to Bubble Bobble Rainbow Islands. The story of Bubble Bobble.
Rainbow Islands, okay.
I've got quite a well, people that know me who may be listening in the chat, I don't know if they are. I know there's one guy that will be listening to this at least later. That I've got quite a connection to that game from my. That was when we were saying earlier. That was probably the first game I think I probably played actually back on the Amstrad computer. So. That version of it's really funny because I remember playing that when I was younger and loving the hell out of it. But then when you play the original arcade version of it, you just think, what the hell was I playing? Because it's so sort of choppy and slow compared to the original version, which is so fast and kind of fluid and everything. I absolutely love this game for many reasons, really. One of the first things was because it's in terms of game design. I know it might not be everybody's taste, but it's the guy who made it, who sadly passed away. What's his name? I'm reading off the thing here. Mitsuji.
Oh yes.
He passed away fairly recently. He said in an interview, Mitsuji. Funny enough, if anyone has the Taito Legends collection, there's a little small. You can actually watch his interview on that. And he talks about,
yes, you can.
which is actually quite an interesting listen. And he says that his goal for Rainbow Islands was that he wanted to make something completely different from Bobble, basically, which is an interesting context. That's something that you don't really see that in modern gaming these days. And before he passed away, he actually went to universities to teach gaming developers to be kind of innovative like that. So I just love that concept and where his heart came from for designing it. But the main reason, and this is kind of a sloppy story, so I do apologise if I'm kind of bringing the tone down a bit, is because a while ago my mother was suffering quite badly from depression. And she played this game when I was very young. In fact, some of my earliest memories were sitting on her lap, literally playing that game, watching her play it. She was the Don at this game. She was amazing. So literally she could...
Yeah, if you get good, you can, watching people play this game is really kind of cool. Because those that are good at it can navigate these somewhat clumsy controls with just the greatest of ease and really navigating those rainbows properly.
And not too long ago, she was, like I said, she had a bit of a bad run in life, and bad stuff happened. And I was trying to find a way to cheer her up. And of all the things to think of, I saw the Rainbow Islands it's the PC version, but it's basically the arcade port. And I saw it in like a thrift store or something like that, we would call it in America, like really cheap. And I brought it, and I thought I brought a controller for the PC for a laptop, and I thought I would let her play it because I thought it might cheer her up. But she didn't want to play it because obviously, when people are low, they don't give a crap about that sort of thing. And so I thought, okay, screw it, I'll play it for you. And I played it for her, and I was crap at this game to start with. Because it's hard as hell if you've never played it before.
Yes.
Especially the arcade version, which is super fast. And it's sort of, in comparison to the Amstrad or any of because I've got most of the ports of it, but I'll get on to that in a second. So basically I played it, and it cheered her up. That's the short story of it, and it made her happy again. And then pretty much every time I go visit her, which is not too often, I still play it for her, really, because it's one of the only times I actually wrote an article about this as well, Fred, but I don't think the guy published that part where I put about this story, which is really annoying. So, because
I can understand.
Which I wrote about it, but I think it might be on one of my own blogs somewhere, which might be lost in the abyss of the internet somewhere. But it's basically...
Well, if you find it, give me the link, and I'll definitely post it up with this show.
Absolutely. Well, basically, it's the first time I would say, as an example, I was playing it, as opposed to, we all play games for enjoyment. This is the first time I was playing it for somebody's happiness, really. And it made a huge difference. And that is probably why I would honestly say it's one of my favourite games of all time. And I hate it. Which some people just say, oh, it's not that great. But it's on a sort of one of those kind of, sentimental levels, really. And the funny thing is, Fred, following that, I did get really good at the game. In fact, I would say I am a very good Rainbow Islands player. My highest score in it is about 700,000, which is not too far off it's not the world record, obviously. Yeah. I was so into it, because I'm not kidding, I was playing this game at one point, I was addicted to it, I was playing it like 4 times in a row. When I played it, I'd play the game consistently 4 times in a row. So, just to get better and try and get the high score and everything. I looked it up on the whole, like the Twin Galaxies, which the high score on there was it 900 or something thousand, but that's the game's limit, though, to the high score, so you can't go any higher than that. So I thought, oh, maybe the only way to do that is do speed runs, but speedrunning the game is nuts because you just die. So, because.
Yeah.
So.
It's a very taxing game. But it's very cool. And just to be clear, while it is called, the story of Bubble Bobble 2, you're not playing Bub and Bob. You're playing a little boy who can make like rainbows, and the only thing that really kind of follows over, aside from the candy or the colorful style, is the fact that that you do collect food all over again. And when you get
it's got elements of Bubble Bobble in it. Where it's it copied some of the sprites and stuff from Bubble Bobble. It's basically the main difference is it's now a vertical scrolling platformer, basically.
Yes, you are. Yeah, instead of being one boxed-in level, it's a vertical scrolling platformer, kind of Ice Climber-esque in the ways that they do like levels. Like you get to a certain altitude throughout each level. So, but it's a very cool game, and when you get good at it, like especially when I start getting used to the rhythm of jumping the rainbows and stuff like that, really cool.
Yeah, absolutely. The only side note, sorry, Fred, is you do actually play as Bub and Bob in it. The huge, I don't know, spoiler alert, in case anyone's not finished Bubble Bobble, the first one, but the dragons are actually, if you get the true ending, they turn into human form.
They're adapted. So yeah. You're right. So technically that's true. There is a Bubble Bobble too, though, where you go back and be Bub and Bob.
Oh yeah, there's so many ports where they're just the dragons again, just for the fuck of it, and it's just
And of course they're so charming, and so of course they became part of Puzzle Bobble, which we probably won't get to given our time constraint. But Puzzle Bobble is definitely, saw some strength on Neo Geo.
The best name in over here is Buster Move.
Oh yeah, it did become Bust a Move later on. Yeah, we did switch it over to Bust a Move.
Yeah.
So yeah, I think it was only Puzzle Bobble for the first version. So, but yeah, well, very cool story and very cool game. Like I said, it's one of those games that's easy to understand but really difficult to master.
Yeah, I totally agree.
And I say that as somebody who didn't even come close to mastering it.
No, I've completed it. I can complete it 100%.
Damn. But anyway, all right. Well, moving on. A couple of games I definitely want to talk about. These are on the collection. I can't believe they are, but is Operation Wolf, which if you had a Pizza Hut in America in 1987-88, it had Operation Wolf. And then it would quickly convert to Operation Thunderbolt, the kind of sequel, and then eventually become Space Gun, which were all three, they were kind of like gun shooters, but they were more like mouse or like, think of like the Wii, whereas the gun was bolted down and it would just kind of track the reticle on the screen as to how you were aiming the gun. And so it's very easy to convert it over to playing it on the home consoles even without a light gun, because it's not really a light gun game, in as much as Revolution X and Terminator 2 are also not really light gun games.
Yeah.
It's this tracker style. But they were the first ones to do it, and on Gaming History 101's YouTube site, I do have a full playthrough of the arcade version of Operation Wolf from this collection, so you can definitely go check it out. They're cool, fun games, but at the end of the day, they are that limited appeal light gun game. But my favorite game that Taito's ever released, and one of the biggest reasons I wanted a MAME cab, is the next game, which is definitely on the collection, which is Raston or Raston. Yeah. The heavily influenced by Conan the Barbarian game, where you play this barbarian with hips of gold that wanders through. The soundtrack of this is one of my favorite things. Because it's just epic. But I do a large playthrough of this on the video, and I've actually done it way before this point in the podcast. But it's a great game.
Yeah.
Where you basically, it's kind of hack and slashy. If you guys ever had a TurboGrafx 16, Legendary Axe very much borrows the Raston style. And there are weapons you can get throughout the game, and the platforming is absolute shit, and there are some levels that have some ridiculous platforming. But it is a lot of fun, and you can continue in the arcade. This
Yeah.
was one of their things where it was the earliest version of free-to-play, where it was like, how much did you want to pump into it, man? How much did you want? How much? Pump a coin and you can continue. And, of course, with the Taito collection, you can continue to pump quarters in. And you can beat this game, within enough quarters. So, but a really good game. I really like it. Although it's got it's kind of stupid too. I don't know. I don't have much of a basis behind why I love it, but I always loved this game. I just always thought the cab looked really cool, very Conan-y, very barbarian style. Obviously that's the appeal to it. Kind of had this He-Man vibe to it, and I was a big He-Man fan, so.
Yeah.
I don't know. Did you ever play Roston?
Oh, absolutely. My first play, I played it originally on the Master System over here, and then obviously,
okay.
The Master System port's actually not bad. That's a lot.
I did not know it's on
Really?
Master System. Now I'm gonna have to go hunt down a copy. Like no bullshit. Yeah.
So, I recommend it actually. It's. I mean, obviously it doesn't graphically look as good, but it's a lot easier than the arcade version. Probably because they probably designed it more for you to obviously complete it rather than so.
Right.
But,
which is a huge draw though to me.
Yeah.
But yeah, I love this game, and this is why I bought the arcade or the Taito collection, Volume 1, the Taito Legends collection, and then realizing that there were so many other great games on here is why I'm like, whoa. Volume 2 is pretty good, but it's got a limited appeal, and it's definitely heavier in the Darius or Darius series. Yeah. But I definitely think that Roston is, or that the Volume 1 is just amazing. So.
Yeah, Volume 1's definitely, if people are interested in the chat, that's probably the one you want to go for as a reference to the podcast. So.
Yeah, yes, and most of the gameplay in this video on the YouTube page is going to be that. But anyway, just wanted to wrap it up, but mention a couple of things. We're not going to really go into them, but I've talked about them before. I was very pleased to see that Zero Wing, which you guys definitely know of in Europe more so than us because of the Mega Drive port. This is the All Your Base Are Belong to Us shooter that was very poorly translated. The Taito's responsible for publishing that. They are also responsible for publishing a great Data East Superman game, which I was one of the first things I played through on my cab. It was in '88. I think we've talked about it before on the show. I just can't remember exactly where. And last but not least, I have to mention something that was a gem I just found on the collection while playing through on this, and I was so happy I did because it's an amazing game. Did you ever play Thunder Fox?
Oh my god, that game is awesome.
This game is the greatest thing, and you have to play it. I play a lot of it on the video as well, and it's just the most batshit, I can't believe this existed and no one talks about it game.
Topless auntie kind of character.
Yeah, you play this secret agent who is completely, like you said, completely topless, kind of Arnold Schwarzenegger-esque. He's running around in, like, Bionic Commando boots and, like, blue jeans, and he's got a big fucking knife.
That's all we need to know.
And that's, it's Russian attack only fun. You just slash people to bits, and then occasionally they do stuff like, take out this tank, and you're like, what? And then you have to, like, stab a guy who comes out and he gives you grenades to hurl at the tank. And occasionally you'll pick up different things like flamethrowers and bazookas and all kinds of fun stuff. And then there are random shmup levels in between. It's like the weirdest mix of, like, Contra and a shmup and Double Dragon and Russian Attack. It's just ridiculous, and it should never exist, and it's just beautiful. Yeah. And, of course, you can continue as much as you want to. And, easily the hidden gem of the Taito Legends Volume 1 collection.
Absolutely.
So if you have never played it and you have either MAME capabilities or you have this collection or you go out and pick it up, hands down, number one is Thunder Fox. You need to play this game. It is genius, and it's everything I love about arcade games.
The sound effects of the enemies as well, when you hit them, it's like, ugh!
Yes. Yes. Which unfortunately will not be in here, and I'm not going to put those sound effects in. But again, Taito has a long-running series and a lot of great games, and we only touched on, kind of scraped the surface of what they've got. They continue to make arcade games all through the 90s, which would would probably cause us to need a different, a whole nother podcast. But they'll go on and do some crazy stuff with Space Invaders and the BOBBLE series. Obviously, we talked about Puzzle Bobble or Bust a Move. They'll do the Lufia series on Super Nintendo and all kinds of other stuff. So definitely check out Taito. They're a great developer. And definitely check out the Legends collections. They are very cheap in every way, shape, and form on Xbox, PS2, and stuff like that. They are not hard to find. They are very cheap. So, so real quick, we will wrap this up. But Jam, where can we find you on a regular basis?
Probably the easiest way to find me is to go on Twitter. It's the Jamster at Jamalais, Jamalais, to figure out where I'm doing and what I'm writing and where it's going as well. That's definitely the best way to find me.
Yep. Excellent. Yes, and you do some freelance work and things like that. So very cool. Definitely, people check it out. Sorry, I'm just looking this over. Did you know that this is crazy? They are responsible for Raiden 3 on Raiden 3 on the PS2. Yeah, they're the ones who Taito did that one, and then they did Target Terror. You remember that terrible game that was ported to the Wii? That's on there as well. Anyway, and you can find me at GamingHistory101.com. Definitely subscribe to the podcast. Feel free to check out the articles, things like that. I've switched it up a little bit. I now do news stories whenever there's like retro stuff, and people, because I can't cover every game, I definitely put stuff on there. So, I recently had somebody who did a playthrough of Hell. I'm also gonna link, it should be live by tomorrow, the Polygon article that was recently done. I think Frank Cifaldi did it. It's an amazing Street Fighter 2 recollection of the development of that game as told by the development team. So it's an amazing article. I definitely recommend people check it out. Also, this podcast can be found at Gaming History 101 under the podcast link, or you can just go to gaminghistory101.podbean.com, and now on YouTube, youtube.com/VGPTGS is our YouTube page. And this podcast will be on there with gameplay footage of all the games we were talking about here, and an intro by Paperboy 2 on the SNES. So definitely check it out. I don't know what I'm going to do next week, so stay tuned. But in the meantime, thank you, TC. Thank you, Chatters. Jam, thank you very much. Thank you, All Games, and we are out.
Here. Well, so it'll probably stay on your magazine anyway. So
I'd easily drop a $5 on that.
Yeah, absolutely.
You don't even want to know their subscription rates. Like, they'll do it, but yeah. So, well, very cool. Anything else go on that you want to bring up before I go into a quick story?
That's all I can think of at the moment. I think I had something else, but no, you go.
If it comes to you, just let me know. For me, for the most part, just a lot of snow. Stayed home from work today because I got stuck out in the snow last year when I tried to brave it, and I wasn't messing with that today. But local retro shop by here, I went over to check them out. They were recently opened, and of all things, the one thing they have are a bunch of unused, used but unsold and not even for sale as far as I could tell, Atari Lynxes. So the shop owner made me a deal where he took a bunch of I've been trying to consolidate stuff, and I know this is like sacrilege to a lot of retro gamers, but I've gotten rid of a lot of boxes, like an original Sega CD box, an original Sega Genesis box, PlayStation 2 box, things like that. Like the boxes the consoles actually come in.
Got to clear that room, though. Clear room
yeah, exactly. And he said, you know what? If you give me all these, and there was a decent amount of them, he gave me a Lynx with a charge cable, like a plug-in-the-wall cable, and he gave me a choice, Lynx 1 or 2. I wanted the first one, the big hammer-fisted one, the big old bone. And I grabbed that, and then he included with it California games, because of course you got to get California games. Blue Lightning, Rampage, Ninja Gaiden, and I got to go look, something else. Maybe Gauntlet? Maybe Gauntlet.
Oh, that's good.
Yeah, and he's got more games, but the Lynx is a tough one because no one really wants it, so to speak. Like, the Lynx has some mild desire, but nothing crazy, and it's worth a lot because there just aren't many out there. So you've got that dichotomy of, like, somebody's like, ooh, like me, like, ooh, I really want a Lynx. Oh, okay. Well, it's $40, it's $20 for the charge cable, and then each game is about $15 to $20, and you're like, never mind, I really don't want a Lynx anymore, and so who knows, he might be able to help that out. Oh, and it looks like none other than All Games staple, Tiger Claw is celebrating his birthday on, if you're downloading it today, which will be Wednesday, Wednesday, February the 5th, so congrats, sir. But anyway, so I got my hands on some Lynx stuff. And other than that, that's about it. Been playing a lot of Taito games. Oh, and actually,
Taito.
there was a lot of talks as to whether or not it's Taito or Taito. It's Tater Games. But I need to talk to John because I got a PCB board that's 100 or 310-in-1. Arcade stuff. I don't know if you saw me talk about this, but I got it and I hooked it up to my JAMA, and it needs to be wired for a 6-button, and I guess the ground wires are moved around on a 3-button setup, and so it does not let me use the joystick interface until I rewire it. So I'm gonna have to do a little side project on my cabinet before I can use it. So in the meantime, my cabinet is a true blue pit fighter cab for right now, which is not great. But hey. I guess without further ado, we'll jump into a little bit of news, and then we'll get on to Taito games. So, first news is Redux, a Dreamcast game that was kickstarted in 2012, has finally released. I believe it had a limited print run. It was roughly $50, I think, for the game on Dreamcast. And I'm guessing ISOs will be out there for you to download and burn it. But I haven't really done that much looking into it, and as we were joking about, of course, it's a shmup. But it has been reviewed out there, so, if you guys want to check it out, go take a look into it. I still think that development of, people like to call it homebrew, but I wouldn't call it homebrew. I'd say development of actual games, especially on dead consoles, is amazing.
Wasn't it? This is a Kickstarter, wasn't it? Back in, I think it was like last year.
They needed $50,000 and they got like $53,000, so.
Just skimming it.
Just jumping over the line. Hey, but it passed. So,
there you go.
And apparently it's quite a good game that does some new stuff. We'll be talking about this, and I'll mention the game club list. Actually, I'll just mention it now because I always try to do it at the end of the hour, and it doesn't work very well. But on the Shmup Game Club, there's a game on there called Power Up, which is a XNA or an indie game on the Xbox Live Marketplace, and it's a very cool game. And Cysoft, the developer, does some really cool stuff with it. And I guess he's working on right now. I follow him obviously. He's been working on a port for iOS and I think Android devices, but I know an iOS port. So if you guys are interested in checking that out, it's $1. And, of course, I have a review on Gaming History 101. But yes, so the official 5 games are as follows. We are going to be doing Power Up by Cysoft on the Xbox 360. We will be doing Radiant Silvergun by Treasure, available on the Saturn for a really high price. Or you can obviously MAME it. It is in cabinet form as well if you want to pay ridiculous prices. And most people will drop the $10 and play it on Xbox 360.
Yeah, that's what I'll do.
You know what? I'm actually going to, for the video, and I'll talk about the video in a sec, I'm going to play the Saturn version. And
really?
Before people think I've got this really rare version, I do not in the case of Radiant Silvergun. In the case of Radiant Silvergun, I have a modded Saturn, so I'll just burn it. But I do own the 360 version, so I get to lie to myself and say it's kind of legal. But so number 2 is Radiant Silvergun. Number 3 is going to be Cinemora. That is available currently on Xbox 360, Steam, or PC. PSN available on the PS3 or the Vita. So you can pick that up. It's a very cool game by Grasshopper Manufacturer, Suda51's group, and we'll be playing that one. The fourth game in the list is, of course, I'm going to blank on it. Oh,
Velocity.
Yes, Velocity Ultra. But it doesn't matter which version. I'm going to play both versions just to get acquainted with them. Velocity originally released as a mini on PS3 and PSP, which is the version I'm going to have to capture gameplay from because I don't currently want to use my next-gen systems to capture gameplay, but I might make an exception for Power Up, but I don't want to go crazy with it. But it's on, that was the original version, and it's kind of a interesting multi-directional shmup of sorts. And Velocity Ultra recently came out, which is not, unfortunately, cross-buy, but it's been on sale a bit. You could have picked it up for like $2 on the 14 and 14, which I know, unfortunately, you guys didn't get in the UK. But it's a gorgeous port on the Vita.
It was on PS Plus in the UK.
At some point.
Yeah, really okay,
well then, so you guys. Okay, well there you go. So, and then last but not least, Jason, who is actually responsible for. He's actually responsible for our logo, for the wonderful logo we've got. A lot of you will probably know him better as, hold on, let me look him up on Twitter so as not to hack it. Albirhiza, Albirhiza. He's going to be coming onto the game club, and his choice, he got to pick one, is going to be none other than the Dreamcast / arcade classic. Where did it go? Oh, damn it. He probably gave it to me in a tweet. This is great radio. Here we go. Gigawing 2 on the Dreamcast. Gigawing 2 is very easy to find. It's not too expensive, and it is on MAME as well. So there are a couple ways you can play that game. And he came up with the format for it. So just so people know, so if you want to get to planning, shmups are the type of games you play over and over and over again. So what you're going to want to do is we're going to do initial impressions, first no continue play, and then score, progress, difficulty, and full playthrough, and then a no continue high score challenge. I will post those up. Yeah, I will post those up at the end of the game club for Buffy at the end of this month. But yeah, we're going to be covering a lot of fun stuff, and you're going to want to definitely put in some hardcore extra time on these games and play them. But you can pick them up now. I've already started downloading them on my the ones that are appropriate that are applicable on my Vita and PSP, so I can start practicing up before I go big screen with it. He also wanted to do Life Force, which is a great game, the arcade version, also known as Salamander. And I didn't want to do that because I've actually done a Life Force game club. It's out there. I don't think it's fantastic, but it was something. And so as a result, I might give him some time to we'll just bounce back and forth about it. But anyway, and it looks like Radiant Silvergun may be coming to Steam. I know that Treasure was working on porting a lot of that stuff to Steam, so that might be cool. Maybe they'll get it out by March so that it can be part of the game club. But if you guys are getting ready to download your games and things like that, definitely check it out. Great games, and if nothing else, I know most of you have 360s out there. Grab Power Up for 99 cents. Support that developer. I would love to see what he can do coming up on other in other areas. And then last but not least, this show is going to now be on YouTube as well. Starting tomorrow, it'll probably go live late tonight. I will port these over to YouTube, and just for you guys, I'm going to have gameplay footage throughout the entire thing. So today I played a bunch of games from the Taito Legends collection. Legends 1 on Xbox, Legends 2 on PS2, and I used my Street Fighter joystick, 15th anniversary big old cabinet joystick while playing it, so I had that authentic arcade experience. And during this little area, we open up with Paperboy, so that's what that's going to be. Paperboy 2 is actually what I play on the SNES. So I've got about probably like 12 minutes of that. So this is going to go a little long for that, but anyway. So without further ado, I think we should jump into Taito. I believe Taito is how you pronounce it. the point
Taito,
of contention.
Taito.
We will talk about Taito games. So anyway, so jumping right into it, just going to talk a little bit about the history of Taito. So, Jam, I know we talk about this from time to time, but were you acquainted with them from a long time ago? Did you know them really? Because they were kind of a developer/publisher, but was that top of mind when you started playing games? I mean, they were pretty pronounced even in the Super Nintendo days.
Oh, yeah. I knew them from, well, the first system I ever played on was an Amstrad computer.
Oh, well then, yes.
So that's where I first got acquainted with it. In fact, I think the first game, which I'll get to a bit later, the first game I played was a Taito game. Or Taito game.
There you go.
I'm going to be doing this a lot today. So.
Oh, no, it's fine. Yeah, and the pronunciation will go either way. I'm not going to stop you. One of my first games was as well, so...
And I did get a chance to play some actual arcade cabinets. When I was younger as well, in the arcades in the UK. But there's only there's a small amount over here that I know of that are here. But yeah, there's a fair few.
And a lot of these games I did play in arcades. In fact, my first arcade game was a Taito arcade cabinet. I played at a video store, which we'll talk about in a minute. Yeah. And chatters and everyone in there, of course, you can jump in here too and talk about your stuff. But real quick, just so you guys know how Taito got its start and what they are. They're a little different than most companies because the company was founded in 1953 by a Russian Jewish businessman by the name of Michael Kogan. He started the Taito Trading Company, started out importing and distributing vending machines, which is not too uncommon with most arcade distributors. From the birthday week?
Oh, well, not really good finds. I mean, I got a few graphic novels from my girlfriend's parents. So I found out I've got quite which is pretty good. What did I get? I got the volume. I haven't got it near me. I would rather grab it. I don't know what it's called, so everyone's going to butcher me. Well, people are familiar with it. The Mass Effect series, the third volume of the graphic novel in that series.
Yes. Actually, I think that's a Dark Horse joint.
Yeah, it's a Dark Horse series. Which I haven't read it yet, so it's
I can't tell you about the story, but I've always dug the art that they do in those.
Yeah.
I'm on a press list for Dark Horse, so occasionally they show me previews of some trades, and you don't get the whole thing or anything, but you get some sample art and stuff like that, and those always catch my eye. They only give me stuff that's relevant, which is video game related stuff, but
yeah, absolutely. And on that note of Dark Horse, the other thing I got was is it the Hyrule Historia, the Zelda thing?
Oh, yes. Very beautiful.
I was quite skeptical about getting that because I've pretty much heard everything about it. I thought, there's no need for me to have that. I've heard all the timeline and stuff like that. But like you said, the artwork alone is worth it because I'm really massive into that concept art stuff. I love it, and just flipping through books. I also have the these are from different sort of birthdays and stuff, or just me purchasing myself. I also have the Mass Effect one and the Halo one, which are like all the concept art stuff.
Yeah,
which are really good. Yeah, I really enjoy those actually.
Believe it or not, one of the weirdest trades I purchased recently was also a Dark Horse joint, and of course I got a preview version. I was like, I want that. Was the Art of Remember Me? I really quite dug that. Yeah. So.
No, I totally dig that sort of stuff. Yeah, because I was thinking of getting the Last of Us version of that.
Oh, I bet that's awesome.
Yeah, I saw it. We entered a raffle when we went to a convention not too long ago, and we were like one number off winning it. I was just like,
that's worse than that's worse than any other loser. Like, you were so close.
It gets worse. The person that won it was this little kid, and you're thinking, you always want to say, slip the kid like 15 quid or something, just say, do you want to just give me that? I'll give you. And his expression on his face, he looks so pissed off he won it as well. I think he wanted something else, like,
Yeah.
Oh, I don't know, but yeah.
Probably his parents wouldn't let him like play the game, so he can't even enjoy like properly. He doesn't even know what it's about. So.
Well, I don't know what it is over there, but a lot of the kids, at least kids that I've met in this country, all they care about is either Call of Duty or FIFA. Well, yeah, the football game, FIFA. That's about it, really. So anything remotely different is just like, nah.
Ours is like Call of Duty and I'd say the other big one is probably either Skylanders or Infinity. Those are pretty big around here, I think. So, but.
at least in my area, I don't think Skylanders is that big. Really, it's just surprising. So,
I didn't think so, but apparently it sells quite well, from what I can tell. I seem to, whenever I'm over at the GameStop or the Game Shop that I've chosen to visit, that's usually when I notice stuff like that. But yes, also, just for people who are interested, those Art of books, one thing I do like about them is, as opposed to traditional trades, they have a hardcover to them. It's nothing crazy, but it's got some base to it. Actually, Jam, if you've ever, you've got the Hyrule Historia, that's really kind of how those art books have kind of the same sort of cover. So it's bolder than a normal cover, but I wouldn't say it's like classic textbook style.
No.
But yeah, they're pretty nice, and they sell for about $30. So it's a decent price.
Yeah, it's not bad.
Yeah, that's half of a copy of Retro Gamer magazine, or no, that's 2 copies of Retro Gamer magazine at our local news store. So,
ouch.
Yeah, $15 a piece. Those import costs are brutal.
Yeah, 15. That's 5.
What's up, everybody, and welcome to Gaming History 101, the Retro Video Games Podcast. I am one of your hosts. My name is Fred Rojas, and joining me yet again is the wonderful and talented Jam. How are you doing tonight, man?
I'm alright, Fred. Thanks for having me on again.
Yeah, definitely. I had to have you on because I finished up the show last week, realized because John was trying to usher us off, and in his defense, we were really digging into his time. And I was like, oh, I forgot to mention what the show's going to be about. And then I said, you know what, screw it. Why don't we do it about Taito arcade games? And you were like, Taito games? And that was about all she wrote on that one. We knew it was a go after that. So yeah, that's what tonight's topic is. But we're going to be talking about a couple of things first. But real quick, so how's your week been, man?
Yeah, my week's been good, man. I actually got a year older this week. So.
Oh, yes, that's right. Happy birthday. I'm sorry, I forgot to congratulate you on the actual day. Skype, of all things, warned me, but I missed it. So, but how was that? How'd that go?
No, it went good. I've got an interesting story if you want to hear it. Where we went. Yeah, absolutely. Me and my lady friend went to one of those kind of posh hotels in the area. It's kind of like a 5-star thing as a treat. Nice. And we went to have we got the drinks from where you'll get the drinks in a bar, and it's always ridiculously expensive. At least in the UK, you're talking like £14 for some drinks there, which is quite a lot. It's crazy. And I said to her as a joke, because it's one of those hotels where you charge it to your room, and you used to say, oh, put it on room 15. I said, wouldn't it be funny if we just charged like these drinks to like a different room? We just choose a room at random or something like that. And she goes, you can't do that because they're going to check your ID and stuff like that. So obviously I let it go. What would we know the next day when we got up in the morning and we go down after obviously our own partying session? Somebody charged drinks to our room.
Really?
Yeah, absolutely. So, I was like, well, we didn't actually notice it until we got back to our home. Then we went straight back to the hotel to demand a refund because we're like, wait a second, we didn't charge £24 of drinks to our room. Well, it had a different signature on it, something. So somebody had the same idea I had, except they actually followed through with it, which I thought was just hilarious.
Well, yeah, I know. Somebody overheard your conversation, was like,
Yeah, exactly. Yeah.
That's crazy.
So that was the highlight of my birthday, but which sounds kind of sad.
Yeah, shit. Did they at least order something good? Like
they ordered. Yeah, they ordered champagne actually, which I was thinking I didn't have champagne for my birthday.
Damn, yeah. That's,
that's
I guess,
hilarious.
go big or go home if you're gonna steal, you know.
Absolutely. So next time we go there, I'm gonna steal their ideas.
There you go. Well, excellent. Well, aside from getting overcharged, and I'm glad they got that taken care of, right? You got that all taken care of?
Yeah, we got the refund. They're actually really good about it, because I was kind of expecting to go over there and they'll be really weird about it and go, oh, well, you know.
Yeah, right.
Yeah. Then they straight away they didn't even question it. They just said, yeah, have a refund. I'm thinking, well, what else can I get away with now?
Yeah, I know. Like, wait a minute. We didn't actually stay here.
I know, yeah.
Well, cool. What else was I going to say? Anything else? Any cool finds or anything like that from